In the glittering towers of Monaco, Formula One champion Lewis Hamilton keeps a secret vault worth over $50 million. Inside gleaming cases sit watches that cost more than entire neighborhoods, timepieces so rare that collectors would kill for them. But 12-year-old Sofia Martinez has never heard of Lewis Hamilton. She only knows that her mother is dying. The medical bills are crushing them. And somewhere in this city of impossible wealth, there might be a way to save the only family she has left. Sofia doesn't know that the most expensive watch in Hamilton's collection isn't worth millions of dollars. It's a simple steel timepiece that belonged to his father. Priceless. Not because of its price tag, but because of the love it represents. She's about to learn that some treasures can't be stolen. They can only be given away. The glass door slid open with a soft whisper. Lewis Hamilton stepped into his most secret room. High above the sparkling waters of Monaco, sunlight danced through the tall windows, making the watches on the walls shine like tiny stars. "Come in, Marcus," Lewis said to his friend. "But be careful. This room holds more money than most people see in their whole lives." Marcus Chen followed him inside. His eyes grew wide as he looked around. The room was not very big, but every wall held glass cases filled with the most beautiful watches in the world. "How much is all this worth?" Marcus asked in a quiet voice. Lewis smiled. "Over $50 million. Some people buy houses for less money than what I paid for just one watch." He walked to the first case. Inside sat a bright red Richard Mille watch that looked like it belonged in a race car. "This one cost me $2 million, Lewis said, pointing at it. "I wore it when I won my first race in Monaco 10 years ago." Marcus shook his head. $2 million for one watch? "That's crazy." "Not crazy," Lewis said. "Each watch tells a story. This one reminds me of the best day of my racing life." They moved to the next case. Here sat older watches with leather bands and faces that had turned yellow with time. "These Rolex watches are from the 1960s, Lewis explained. "This Daytona here? It's worth over $5 million now. Only a few like it exist in the whole world." Marcus bent down to look closer. "Why are old watches worth so much money?" "Because they're special. Long ago, not many people bought them. Now everyone wants them, but there aren't many left." Lewis's phone buzzed. He looked at it and frowned. "Sorry, I have to take this call," he said. "Look around, but don't touch anything. I'll be right back." Marcus nodded and kept looking at the watches. Each one was more amazing than the last. There were gold ones, silver ones, and some made from materials he had never heard of. While Lewis talked on his phone in the hallway, Marcus found the most special case of all. In the center sat a simple watch with a black face and silver band. It didn't look fancy like the others, but something about it made Marcus feel sad and happy at the same time. A small card next to it read Anthony Hamilton's GMT Master, 1961. A father's gift to his son's dreams. Marcus understood. This was Lewis's father's watch, the one that started it all. Far across Monaco in a small apartment near the old port, 12-year-old Sofia Martinez was on her hands and knees, scrubbing the bathroom floor of the Hotel Grand Monaco. The white tiles were cold under her knees, and her hands were red from the cleaning soap. "Sofia, you missed a spot by the sink," called Mrs. Dubois, the hotel's head cleaner. She was not mean, but she was very strict about making everything perfect. "Yes, ma'am," Sofia said. She dipped her brush back into the soapy water and scrubbed harder. This was not how Sofia wanted to spend her Saturday afternoon. She would rather be reading books or doing her homework. But her mother Elena needed the extra money, and Sofia was old enough to help. Elena worked as a night cleaner in the big office buildings around Monaco. She cleaned when everyone else was sleeping, from 10 at night until 6 in the morning. But even with 2 jobs, there was never enough money. Their tiny apartment cost too much. Food cost too much. Everything in Monaco cost too much. "Sofia, come here," Mrs. Dubois called from the hotel lobby. "I want you to hear this." Sofia put down her brush and walked to where Mrs. Dubois stood behind the front desk. 2 rich men in expensive suits were talking loudly about something exciting. "I'm telling you, his watch collection is incredible," the first man said. "Lewis Hamilton has over $50 million worth of timepieces in his penthouse." "50 million? The second man laughed. "That's more than my house cost. Way more." He has this one Richard Mille that's worth $2 million all by itself. Can you imagine wearing $2 million on your wrist? Sophia's eyes grew wide. $2 million? That was more money than she could even think about. He keeps them all in a special room with cameras and alarms, the first man continued. Like a treasure vault in his apartment. Smart man. With that much money and watches, he needs good security. The men walked away, still talking about Lewis Hamilton's amazing collection. Sophia stood frozen by the front desk. $2 million for one watch. Just one. Mrs. Dubois had been listening too. She shook her head and clicked her tongue. Rich people, she said. They spend more money on toys than normal people make in a lifetime. Sophia nodded, but her mind was spinning. If someone had just one of those watches, they could solve all their problems. They could pay for better doctors for her mother. They could move to a bigger apartment. They could stop worrying about money every single day. Sophia, are you feeling okay? Mrs. Dubois asked. You look very pale. I'm fine, Sophia said quickly. Just thinking about something. But she wasn't fine. For the first time in her life, Sophia was thinking about doing something she knew was wrong. Something that could change everything. That evening, Sophia walked home through the narrow streets of La Condamine. This was the oldest part of Monaco, where regular people lived in small apartments while rich people lived in tall towers nearby. She climbed the 4 flights of stairs to their tiny apartment. Her mother Elena was sitting at their small kitchen table, looking through a stack of bills and letters. Elena Martinez had been beautiful once. Sophia had seen pictures of her mother as a young woman in Barcelona, smiling and dancing at festivals. But years of hard work and worry had made her thin and tired. Her black hair now had gray streaks, and her hands were rough from cleaning chemicals. How was work today, Mama Dueta asked, using the Spanish words for my love. It was good, Mama. Mrs. Dubois said I did a very good job. Elena smiled. I'm proud of you for helping us. But I wish you could just be a child and play with friends. Sophia sat down next to her mother. The bills were spread across the table like a puzzle with no good answer. Red stamps that said final notice were on most of them. Mama, are we gonna be okay? Elena quickly gathered up the papers. Of course we are. Don't worry about grown-up things. But Sophia could see the fear in her mother's eyes. She could see how Elena tried to hide her shaking hands and the way she held her side when she thought Sophia wasn't looking. Something was very wrong with her mother. Something that needed doctors and medicine they couldn't afford. That night, after Elena went to bed, Sophia sat by her window looking out at the lights of Monaco. Somewhere up in one of those tall buildings, Lewis Hamilton was probably looking at his $50 million worth of watches. Sophia had never stolen anything in her life. She had been raised to be honest and work hard for everything she wanted, but as she watched her mother sleep, coughing softly in the next room, a terrible idea began to grow in her mind. What if she could take just one watch? Just one small piece from a collection so big that one person could never need it all. It would be wrong. She knew that. But watching her mother get sicker every day while they couldn't afford help, wasn't that wrong too? Sophia pressed her face against the cool window glass. Tomorrow she would go back to scrubbing floors and pretending everything was fine. But tonight, in the darkness of their small apartment, she was planning something that would either save her mother's life or destroy her own. The lights of Monaco twinkled like stars, and somewhere among them was a room full of treasures that could solve all her problems. Sophia fell asleep with her head against the window, dreaming of watches, and wondering if she was brave enough to become a thief. 3 months earlier, life had been different. Not easy, but different. Sophia and Elena had lived in Barcelona, Spain in a small apartment above her grandfather's old watch shop. The shop had been closed for years since grandfather Eduardo died, but they kept the apartment because the rent was cheap. Elena worked at a hotel there, cleaning rooms during the day. She would come home tired but smiling, always bringing Sophia a small treat, maybe a piece of chocolate or a pretty flower from the hotel garden. Tell me about grandfather Eduardo, Sophia would ask on quiet evenings. Elena's eyes would light up. He was a master watchmaker. His hands were so steady he could fix the tiniest parts. People came from all over Barcelona to have him repair their watches. Why didn't he teach you? I wanted to learn, but I was too busy with school and then work. I always thought there would be more time. Elena's voice would get sad. There's never as much time as we think, mi amor. But then Elena started getting sick. First, she was just tired all the time. Then came the stomach pains that made her double over when she thought Sofia wasn't looking. Finally, the day she collapsed at work and an ambulance took her to the hospital. The doctors in Barcelona ran many tests. They used big words Sofia didn't understand, but she understood the worried looks on their faces. Your mother needs special treatment, Dr. Garcia had told Sofia in the hospital waiting room. The kind we don't have here in Barcelona. Monaco has some of the best doctors in Europe for this condition. Elena had been embarrassed to ask, but Sofia's Aunt Carmen gave them money for bus tickets to Monaco. It's just for a little while, Elena promised. Until I get better. That was 3 years ago. Elena wasn't getting better. She was getting worse. Sofia woke up Sunday morning with a crick in her neck from sleeping against the window. Sunlight streamed into their tiny kitchen, and she could smell coffee brewing. Elena stood at the stove, making breakfast. She moved slowly, holding her side with one hand while stirring eggs with the other. "Good morning, sleepyhead," Elena said. "Did you sleep by the window again? Your neck will hurt." Sofia rubbed her neck and sat at their small table. "I'm okay, Mama." Elena put a plate of scrambled eggs and toast in front of her. It was a small portion. They had to make their food last all week. "I have good news," Elena said, sitting down with her own smaller plate. "Mrs. Dubois called this morning. There's extra work at the hotel today. A big wedding party is checking in." Sofia nodded, but she noticed her mother barely touched her eggs. Elena always gave Sofia more food and said she wasn't hungry. "Mama, you need to eat too. I ate earlier while you were sleeping." It was a gentle lie. Elena did this often now. After breakfast, they walked together through the streets of Monaco. Elena moved slower than she used to, stop and catch her breath more often. Monaco was beautiful, but it felt like a fairy tale that Sofia could look at but never touch. Wherever she looked, she saw wealth beyond imagination. Sports cars that cost more than most people's houses. Stores selling purses that cost thousands of euros. People wearing clothes that probably cost more than Sofia's family made in a year. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like?" Sofia asked as they passed a jewelry store window. What would be like? To have enough money, to not worry about bills or food or doctors. Elena stopped walking and turned to look at her daughter. "Sofia, money isn't everything. We have each other. We have our health, but we don't have your health," Sofia said quietly. "You're sick, and we can't afford to make you better." Elena's face went pale. "What makes you think that?" Sofia looked down at the sidewalk. "I see the bills, Mama. I see how you hold your side when you think I'm not looking. I see how you eat less so I can eat more." For a long moment, Elena said nothing. Then she knelt down so she was at Sofia's eye level, even though it clearly hurt her to do it. "Mi amor, I need you to promise me something. Promise me you won't do anything dangerous or foolish to try to help me. Sometimes life is hard, but we get through it by staying together and staying honest. Promise me." Sofia looked into her mother's eyes. They were the same dark brown as her own, but now they had dark circles underneath and little lines from worry. "I promise, Mama." It was the first lie Sofia had ever told her mother. At the hotel that afternoon, Sofia met someone who would change everything. She was cleaning the lobby windows when she heard someone speaking Russian behind her. A boy about 15 years old was arguing with the hotel manager, Mr. Blanc. "I told you. My father sent me to pay the bill," the boy said in accented English. "Here is the money." Mr. Blanc looked suspicious. "And where exactly is your father?" The boy's jaw tightened. "He's away on business." For a long time. Sofia could tell the boy was lying, but she didn't know why. He was tall and thin, with light brown hair and gray eyes that looked older than 15. His clothes were nice, but not fancy. Definitely not like the usual rich guests at the hotel. "I'm sorry," Mr. Blanc said. "I need to speak with an adult. Hotel policy." The boy's face turned red. "This is stupid. I have the money right here." Sofia watched as he stormed out of the hotel lobby. Without thinking, she followed him outside. "Hey," she called. "Wait up." The boy turned around, surprised. "What do you want?" "I'm Sofia. I work here sometimes." "You seemed upset." He studied her for a moment. I'm Dimitri. And yes, I'm upset. Adults are stupid. Sophia laughed despite herself. Sometimes they are. Why wouldn't he take your money? Dimitri sat down on the steps outside the hotel. Because my father isn't here to permission. My father is… He paused. Let's just say he's not available right now. Sophia sat down next to him. Something about this boy seemed familiar. Like they understood each other. Where are you from? She asked. Russia, originally. But we've lived all over Europe. My father's work makes us move around a lot. What kind of work does he do? Dimitri was quiet for a long time. Then he said he takes things that don't belong to him. Sophia's eyes widened. You mean he's a thief? Yes. A very good one, actually. Or he was, until he got caught. Sophia should have been scared or shocked, but instead she felt curious. What's it like, having a father who steals? Weird. Exciting sometimes, but mostly just scary. You never know when the police might come. You never know when you'll have to run away in the middle of the night. Dimitri looked at her. What about your father? I don't have one. It's just me and my mom. What does she do? She cleans buildings at night. And she's sick, but we can't afford doctors. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Two kids with complicated lives. You know, Dimitri said finally, my father taught me things. About security systems. About locks. About how rich people protect their valuables. Sophia's heart started beating faster. Why are you telling me this? Because you look like someone who might need to know someday. Sophia thought about Lewis Hamilton's watch collection. About her mother getting sicker. About the bills with red stamps. Could you teach me some of those things? Just as a game. I mean, like, pretend. Dimitri grinned. Sure, it could be fun. Neither of them realized that this conversation would lead to the most dangerous night of their lives. That evening, Sophia walked home alone. Elena was working her night shift, cleaning the offices in the business district. Sophia hated when her mother worked at night. It was hard work. And Elena came home exhausted every morning. Their apartment felt too quiet without Elena there. Sophia tried to do her homework, but she kept thinking about Dimitri and the things his father had taught him. She also kept thinking about what Elena had made her promise. Stay honest. Don't do anything dangerous. But what if being honest meant watching her mother die? What if staying safe meant losing the only person in the world who loved her? Sophia opened her laptop, an old one. Elena had bought used from a pawn shop, and searched for information about Lewis Hamilton. She learned that he lived in a building called Tour Odeon, one of the most expensive apartment buildings in Monaco. She found articles about his watch collection. The reporters called it one of the most valuable private watch collections in the world. They mentioned specific watches worth millions of dollars. One article showed a picture of Hamilton wearing a bright red Richard Mille watch. The caption said it was worth $2.3 million. $2.3 million. Enough to pay for any doctor, any treatment, any medicine her mother could ever need. Sophia closed the laptop and stared out the window at the lights of Monaco. Somewhere out there, Elena was scrubbing floors and emptying trash cans, her body getting weaker every night. Somewhere else out there, Lewis Hamilton had more watches than one person could ever wear, each one worth more money than Sophia's family had ever seen. It didn't seem fair. When Elena came home at dawn, Sophia pretended to be asleep. She listened to her mother move slowly through their small apartment, heard her take pills from a bottle she thought Sophia didn't know about. Elena stood in Sophia's doorway for a long moment, just watching her daughter breathe. I love you so much, mi amor. Elena whispered in Spanish. I'm sorry I can't give you a better life. Sophia squeezed her eyes shut and tried not to cry. Her mother had nothing to be sorry for. If anyone should be sorry, it would be Sophia for what she was beginning to plan. Outside, the sun was rising over Monaco. It was going to be a beautiful day, but Sophia felt like storm clouds were gathering in her heart, and she wasn't sure if she was strong enough to face what was coming. 2 weeks later, Sophia stood outside the offices of Monaco Premium Cleaning Services, holding a piece of paper that could change everything. Mrs. Dubois had given her the address after Sophia begged for more work. They need someone young and quiet to help with the luxury apartments. Mrs. Dubois had explained. The pay is better. But the rules are stricter. No talking to residents. No touching anything except what you're cleaning. The office was small and smelled like lemon cleaner. Behind the desk sat a woman with perfectly styled gray hair and sharp blue eyes. Her name tag read Mrs. Beaumont, manager. "You're very young," Mrs. Beaumont said, looking Sophia up and down. "Most of our clients prefer adult cleaners." "I'm a very good worker," Sophia said, trying to sound confident. "Mrs. Dubois says I never miss a spot and I'm always on time." Mrs. Beaumont studied the letter of recommendation from Mrs. Dubois. "Can you follow rules exactly? These apartments are worth millions of euros. One mistake could cost me my business." "Yes, ma'am. I follow rules very well. No talking to residents unless they speak to you first. No using your phone during work hours. No touching anything that isn't part of your cleaning duties. And absolutely no going into rooms you're not assigned to clean. Understood?" Sophia nodded. "I understand." "Good. You'll start Monday at Building 7. Tour Odeon. It's the tallest residential building in Monaco." Sophia's heart jumped. Tour Odeon. That was where Lewis Hamilton lived. "What floors will I be cleaning?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "Floors 35 through 45. The penthouse levels. Our most important clients live there." Sophia could barely contain her excitement. "Thank you, Mrs. Beaumont. I won't let you down." As she walked home, Sophia felt guilty and excited at the same time. She was getting exactly what she needed to help her mother, but she was also lying to kind people who trusted her. Monday morning came too soon. Sophia put on her new cleaning uniform, a simple blue dress with the company logo. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the girl staring back. She looked like someone who belonged in fancy buildings, not someone planning to steal from them. Elena was already asleep after her night shift. Sophia left a note saying she had gone to work early. Another small lie in a growing pile of them. Tour Douan was even more impressive up close. The building stretched up into the sky like a glass mountain. Sophia counted the floors until she lost track somewhere around 30. The lobby was all marble and gold, with a fountain in the center and fresh flowers everywhere. Men in expensive suits sat reading newspapers, while women in designer clothes walked small dogs that probably cost more than Sophia's family made in a month. "You must be Sophia," said a voice behind her. Sophia turned to see a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and graying brown hair pulled back in a ponytail. She wore the same blue uniform as Sophia. "I'm Marie," the woman said. "I'll be training you today." Marie led Sophia to a service elevator hidden behind the main lobby. "The residents don't like see cleaning staff in the main elevators," she explained. "We use this one." As they rode up to the 35th floor, Marie gave Sophia the rules. "Each apartment takes about 2 hours to clean. We have master keys, but we always knock first. Some residents are very particular about their schedules." "Do you know all the people who live here?" Sophia asked. "Most of them. There's Mrs. Chen. She's a banker from Hong Kong. Mr. Petrov. He owns oil companies. And on the top floor," Marie smiled, "Lewis Hamilton, the race car driver. He's actually very nice, not stuck up like some of them." Sophia's pulse quickened. "Does he have a schedule? Like when is he usually home?" Marie gave her a curious look. "Why do you ask?" Sophia thought quickly. "My little brother loves race cars. I just thought it would be exciting to maybe see a real driver. Well, he's usually out training on Tuesday mornings. Leaves around 10 and doesn't come back until evening. But remember, no bothering the residents." Sophia nodded, filing away this crucial information. The first apartment they cleaned belonged to Mrs. Chen. It was bigger than Sophia's entire building in Barcelona, with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the Mediterranean Sea. "The residents have cameras in common areas," Marie warned as they dusted the living room. "Security watches everything, so always be professional." Sophia looked around and spotted 3 small cameras in just the living room. Her heart sank. How could anyone steal anything with so many cameras watching? They spent the morning cleaning 2 more apartments. Each one was like a palace, filled with art and furniture that Sophia knew cost more than her family would see in a lifetime. Finally, at noon, they reached the elevator to the penthouse floors. "These top floors are special," Marie said as they rode up. "Only 3 apartments. The richest of the rich live here. The elevator opened onto a hallway that looked like something from a movie. The carpet was so thick Sophia's feet sank into it. The walls had real paintings in gold frames. "That one is Mr. Hamilton's," Marie said, pointing to a door at the end of the hall. "Apartment 45501, but he's not scheduled for cleaning today. We just do the hallway." Sophia stared at the door. Behind it was the man with $50 million worth of watches. Behind it was the solution to all her problems. "Has anyone ever tried to rob these apartments?" Sophia asked, trying to sound like she was just curious. Marie laughed. "Are you kidding? This place has more security than the palace. Cameras everywhere, guards downstairs, alarm systems on every door. Plus, most of these people have private security companies watching their homes." Sophia's heart sank even further. It sounded impossible. They finished cleaning the hallway and rode back down in silence. Sophia's mind was spinning. The security was much more complicated than she had imagined. That afternoon, Sophia met Dmitri at a small cafe near the harbor. She had texted him from a payphone asking if he wanted to practice the security game they had talked about. Dmitri arrived with a backpack full of electronics and old magazines about security systems. "My father always said the hardest part isn't getting past the locks," he explained, spreading out diagrams of different alarm systems. "The hardest part is the cameras and guards." "What if there were 3 different alarm systems?" Sophia asked. "And cameras in every room?" Dmitri whistled. "That's serious security. What kind of place are we pretending to break into?" Sophia had prepared for this question. "A jewelry store. For our school project about security systems." It was another lie, but Dmitri seemed to believe it. "Okay, for something like that, you'd need to disable the alarms without triggering the backup systems. Most places have 2 or 3 different alarm companies, just in case one fails." He showed her pictures of different types of electronic devices. "This is what my father used to make. EEM devices. They send out electronic pulses that can temporarily shut down security systems. Temporarily. Usually for about 10 to 15 minutes depending on how good the device is and how well protected the systems are." Sophia's mind was racing. 10 to 15 minutes. That might be enough time. "Could you make one of those devices? Just for pretend, I mean." Dmitri grinned. "Actually, yes. It's not that hard if you know what parts to buy. Want me to show you?" Sophia nodded, even though she felt sick about what she was planning. Meanwhile, 15 floors above the city, Lewis Hamilton stood in his watchroom holding his father's GMT Master. He did this every day before training, touching the watch that connected him to his dad. The past few weeks had been difficult. His racing wasn't going well, and he felt pressure from his team to perform better. At 38 years old, he knew he didn't have many racing years left. "Sometimes I don't know if I'm good enough anymore. Dad," he said to the watch, as if his father could hear him. "Sometimes I wonder if I should just quit while I'm ahead." The watch said nothing back, but Lewis felt a little better holding it. His father had worked 3 jobs to pay for Lewis's early racing career. Anthony Hamilton had sacrificed everything so his son could chase his dreams. Lewis carefully placed the GMT Master back in its case and locked the vault. As he did every day, he punched in the alarm code 0644, June 4th, 1944. His father's birthday. He had no idea that far below, a 12-year-old girl was planning to break into his most sacred space. Lewis grabbed his training bag and headed for the door. As he waited for the elevator, he had a strange feeling, like someone was watching him. He looked around the hallway but saw only the usual cleaning cart and vacuum cleaner. "You're being paranoid," he told himself as the elevator doors closed. But sometimes paranoia exists for a reason. That evening, Sophia returned home to find Elena sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of medical bills and a letter that made Sophia's blood run cold. "What's that, Mama?" Elena quickly tried to hide the letter, but Sophia was faster. She grabbed it and read the words that made her world crumble. "Final notice, payment required within 14 days or treatment will be discontinued." "Mama, what does this mean?" Elena's eyes filled with tears. "It means we need to find the money very soon." Or, she couldn't finish the sentence. "Or what? Or I'll have to stop my treatments. The medicine is too expensive." Sophia felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. "But you'll get sicker without the medicine. I know, Myanmar, but we can't pay for something we don't have money for. Sophia looked at the amount on the bill, 200,000 euros. It might as well have been 1 billion. There was no way they could ever pay that much money. Unless… Mama, I need to tell you something, Sophia said, but Elena held up her hand. Whatever you're thinking, the answer is no. We'll find another way. What other way? There is no other way. Elena stood up, even though it clearly caused her pain. Sophia Martinez, we are honest people. We don't take things that don't belong to us. My father taught me that, and I'm teaching it to you. Sophia wanted to scream that honesty wouldn't save her mother's life. That being good people wouldn't pay for medicine. That sometimes the world forced you to choose between being good and being alive. But she just nodded and said, "Yes, Mama." Later that night, after Elena had gone to bed, Sophia sat by her window, looking out at the lights of Monaco. Somewhere up there, Lewis Hamilton was probably sleeping peacefully in his penthouse, surrounded by more wealth than Sophia could imagine. Tomorrow was Tuesday. Tomorrow Lewis Hamilton would leave at 10 in the morning and not return until evening. Tomorrow, Sophia would either save her mother's life or destroy her own. She closed her eyes and tried to pray, but she wasn't sure if God listened to the prayers of future thieves. The storm clouds in her heart were getting darker, and Sophia could feel the rain beginning to fall. The next morning, Sophia met Dimitri at the abandoned playground near the old port. It was early, before most people were awake, and the morning mist made everything look gray and ghostly. Dimitri had brought a small suitcase filled with electronic parts and tools. His eyes were bright with excitement, like this was the best game he had ever played. "I stayed up all night working on this," he said, opening the case. Inside was a device about the size of a cell phone, with wires and tiny lights. "It's a real EMP generator, just like my father used to make." Sophia stared at the device. It looked so small and harmless, but it could shut down security systems worth millions of dollars. "How does it work?" she asked. "You get within about 20 feet of the main alarm box and press this button," Dimitri explained, pointing to a red switch. "It sends out electromagnetic pulses that confuse the electronic systems. They shut down for 10 to 15 minutes while they restart. And cameras? Same thing. As long as they're digital cameras, they'll go dark too." Dimitri grinned. "Pretty cool, right? I can't wait to test it at school for our security project." Sophia's stomach twisted. Dimitri still thought this was pretend. He had no idea he was helping her plan a real crime. "Dimitri," she said carefully, "what was your father like before he got caught?" Dimitri's smile faded a little. "He was complicated, smart, but always looking over his shoulder. He taught me things, but he also made our life very difficult." "Do you miss him?" "Every day. But I don't miss the fear. Never knowing when we'd have to run. Never knowing if today was the day the police would come." Sophia felt terrible. Here was this boy who had suffered because of his father's crimes, and she was asking him to help her become a criminal too. "My father always said the hardest part about stealing isn't the stealing itself," Dimitri continued. "It's living with what you've done afterward. He said every stolen thing carries a weight, and eventually that weight becomes too heavy to carry." "Then why did he keep doing it?" Dimitri was quiet for a long moment. "I think he forgot how to stop. Once you cross that line, it gets easier to cross it again." Sophia looked at the EMP device in Dimitri's hands. Such a small thing to carry such a big decision. What if someone really needed money? She asked. Like if someone they loved was gonna die without it. Dimitri studied her face. "Sophia, this is still just a game, right? For school?" Sophia wanted to tell him the truth, but she was afraid he would try to stop her. Or worse, that he would want to help for real and get in trouble too. "Of course," she lied. "Just a game." But Dimitri's gray eyes looked worried, like he was starting to suspect something. That afternoon, Sophia went to visit her mother at Princess Grace Hospital. Elena was having more tests done, and the waiting room was full of worried families. Sophia found Elena in a small room, wearing a hospital gown and looking very pale. There were tubes in her arm, and machines making soft beeping sounds. "How are you feeling, Mama?" "Better," Elena said, but her voice was weak. "The doctors are very smart here, much smarter than the ones in Barcelona." Dr. Rousseau entered the room, carrying a thick folder of test results. He was a kind man with gentle eyes, but Sophia could see worry in his face. Mrs. Martinez, may I speak with you privately? He asked. Sophia can hear whatever you have to say, Elena replied. She's very mature for her age. Dr. Rousseau sat down and opened the folder. I won't lie to you. Your condition is more serious than we initially thought. The treatments you've been receiving have slowed the progression, but they haven't stopped it. Sophia felt like ice water was running through her veins. What does that mean? It means your mother needs surgery. Soon. Without it. Dr. Rousseau paused, looking for gentle words. Without it, the treatments will stop working altogether. How soon? Elena asked. Within the next 2 weeks. Elena's face went white. And the cost? 200,000 euros. I know it's a lot of money, but there are payment plans. We don't have 200,000 euros, Elena said quietly. We don't have 20,000 euros. Dr. Rousseau looked genuinely sad. There are charity programs, but the waiting lists are very long. Months, sometimes years. Do we have months? Sophia asked. The doctor's silence was answer enough. After he left, Sophia and Elena sat in the quiet hospital room, listening to the machines beep and thinking about impossible choices. I'm sorry, Malmor, Elena whispered. I'm sorry I can't give you a better life. I'm sorry I'm sick. I'm sorry for all of this. Sophia took her mother's hand. It felt so thin and cold. Don't be sorry, Mama. None of this is your fault. Promise me something, Elena said. Promise me that no matter what happens to me, you'll stay good. You'll stay honest. Don't let my sickness make you do something that will hurt your soul. Sophia looked into her mother's eyes and saw so much love and trust. Elena believed in her completely. Elena thought Sophia was incapable of doing anything wrong. I promise, Mama, Sophia said. It was the biggest lie she had ever told. That evening, Sophia walked through Monaco's old town, thinking about everything Dr. Rousseau had said. 2 weeks. Her mother had 2 weeks before the treatments stopped working. She found herself standing outside Tour Odeon, looking up at the tall building disappearing into the clouds. 45 floors up, Lewis Hamilton was probably in his watchroom, surrounded by timepieces worth more than most countries' annual budgets. Sophia thought about what Dimitri's father had said, that stolen things carry weight. But what about letting someone die when you could save them? Didn't that carry weight too? Her phone buzzed. A text from Dimitri. Want to test the device tomorrow? I found a good place. Sophia stared at the message for a long time. Tomorrow was Tuesday. Tomorrow, Lewis Hamilton would leave at 10 in the morning for training. She typed back, yes. Meet me at 9 a.m. near Tour Odeon. Then she sent another text. Bring the EMP device. As she walked home, Sophia felt like she was walking toward the edge of a cliff. Tomorrow, she would either jump or turn back. There would be no middle ground. Meanwhile, high above the city, Lewis Hamilton sat in his watchroom, having the worst day of his racing career. Practice had gone terribly. His car felt wrong, his timing was off, and his team was frustrated with him. He picked up his father's GMT Master and held it like a lifeline. I don't know what's wrong with me lately, Dad, he said to the watch. I feel like I'm losing my edge. Maybe I'm getting too old for this. The watch sat silent in his palm, but holding it made Lewis feel less alone. This simple timepiece was worth maybe 50,000 euros. Nothing compared to his Richard Mille or Patek Philippe pieces. But it was worth everything to him because it connected him to the man who had sacrificed everything for Lewis's dreams. Anthony Hamilton had worked 3 jobs to pay for his son's karting career. He had driven Lewis to races in an old van, slept in parking lots to save money on hotels, and eaten cheap sandwiches so Lewis could have proper meals. You gave up everything for me, Lewis whispered, and I still don't know if I was worth it. The GMT Master had been Anthony's only luxury. He had saved for months to buy it, saying that a man needed one good watch in his life. When Anthony died suddenly of a heart attack, Lewis was only 22 and just starting his Formula One career. Lewis had worn the watch to every race since then. It was his good luck charm, his connection to his father, his reminder that love was more valuable than money. He carefully placed the GMT Master back in its special case, at the center of his collection. Tomorrow was another day of training. Maybe tomorrow would be better. As he locked the vault and entered his security code, 0644, his father's birthday, Louis had no idea that a 12-year-old girl was planning to break into his most sacred space. He had no idea that tomorrow would change both their lives forever. Sophia returned home to find Elena sleeping fitfully on the couch. There were more medical bills on the kitchen table and a new letter from the hospital. Sophia read the letter with growing horror. It was from the billing department, explaining that if payment wasn't received within 10 days, Elena's treatment would be suspended. 10 days. Not 2 weeks, 10 days. Sophia looked at her sleeping mother. Elena's face was peaceful in sleep, but Sophia could see how much weight she had lost. Her mother was disappearing a little more each day. In 10 days, unless Sophia found 200,000 euros, her mother would die. Sophia went to her room and took out her phone. She scrolled through pictures of her and Elena from happier times. Elena teaching Sophia to cook Spanish rice. Elena braiding Sophia's hair for school. Elena reading bedtime stories in Spanish and English, making funny voices for all the characters. Her mother was the only family Sophia had left. Without Elena, Sophia would be completely alone in the world. She thought about Lewis Hamilton and his tower of wealth, surrounded by watches worth more money than Sophia could comprehend. Was it really stealing if taking one watch could save a life? Was it really wrong if the person would never even miss what was taken? Sophia's phone buzzed with another text from Dimitri. I've been thinking about what you asked today, about someone needing money for a sick family member. Sophia, you're not really planning something, are you? Sophia stared at the message for a long time. Dimitri was getting suspicious. Soon he would figure out that this wasn't a game. She typed back, "Don't worry. Everything is fine." But everything wasn't fine. Everything was falling apart, and tomorrow Sophia would either save her mother or destroy herself trying. She looked out her window at Tour Odeon, glowing like a lighthouse in the Monaco night. Tomorrow, she would find out if she was brave enough to steal from one of the most famous people in the world. Tomorrow, she would find out if love was stronger than fear. The storm in her heart was about to break. Tuesday morning arrived gray and cloudy, as if the sky knew what Sophia was planning. She woke up at dawn, her stomach churning with fear and guilt. Today was the day she would either save her mother or ruin her life. Elena was already gone to work, leaving a note on the kitchen table. "Have a good day at school, mi amor. I love you more than all the stars." Sophia crumpled the note and put it in her pocket. She might need something to remind her why she was doing this terrible thing. She dressed in her cleaning uniform and gathered the tools she would need. Marie had given her a master keycard for emergencies, trusting Sophia completely. Another person whose trust Sophia was about to break. At 8:30 a.m., Sophia took the bus to Tour Odeon. Her hands shook as she held onto the rail, and she felt sick to her stomach. Every part of her wanted to turn around and go home. But then she thought about Elena in that hospital bed, getting weaker every day. 10 days. That's all the time they had left. Dimitri was waiting by the building's service entrance, carrying his backpack with the EMP device inside. He looked excited but also nervous. "Are you sure about this?" he asked when he saw Sophia's pale face. "You look like you're going to throw up." "I'm fine," Sophia lied. "Just nervous about testing the device." "Where exactly are we testing it?" Sophia had prepared for this question. "There's an empty apartment on the 40th floor. Perfect for seeing how the device works." Dimitri nodded, but his gray eyes looked worried. "Sophia, I need to ask you something. This really is just a test, right? We're not actually breaking into anything?" Sophia looked into his eyes and saw a boy who had spent his whole life running from his father's crimes. A boy who wanted to be good but had been given tools for being bad. "Of course not," she said. "Just a test." It was the lie that would haunt her forever. At 9:45 a.m., Sophia and Dimitri rode the service elevator to the 40th floor. Sophia's heart was beating so hard she was sure Dimitri could hear it. The hallway was empty and quiet. Most of the residents were at work or traveling. The thick carpet muffled their footsteps as they walked toward the main elevator that would take them to the penthouse levels. "The security office monitors all the main elevators," Sophia explained, remembering what Marie had taught her. "But they don't watch the service elevators as carefully." "How do you know all this?" Dimitri asked. "I pay attention when I'm working." They reached the main elevator and Sophia pressed the button for the 45th floor. As they rode up, Sophia watched the numbers climb. 40, The doors opened onto the penthouse hallway. Sophia had been here before with Marie, but it felt completely different now. Now she was here to commit a crime. Wow, Dmitri whispered, looking at the expensive artwork and thick carpets. Rich people really live differently. Sophia led him down the hall to apartment 4501. Lewis Hamilton's door looked like all the others, but Sophia knew what was behind it. The most valuable private watch collection in the world. "This is it," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Dmitri looked at the door, then at Sophia. "Wait, this isn't an empty apartment, is it?" Sophia's silence was answer enough. "Sophia, whose apartment is this?" She took a deep breath. "Lewis Hamilton's." Dimitri's face went white. "The race car driver?" "Sophia, are you crazy? We can't break into Lewis Hamilton's apartment." "We're not breaking in," Sophia said desperately. "We're just testing your device to see if it really works." "And then what? We just leave?" Sophia couldn't answer that question because the answer would make Dmitri run away. Instead, she checked her watch. "He should be leaving for training any minute now," she said. "Once he's gone, we'll have hours." "Hours for what, Sophia?" Before Sophia could answer, they heard the elevator opening at the other end of the hall. Both children froze. Lewis Hamilton stepped out of the elevator, wearing his Mercedes racing jacket and carrying a training bag. He was talking on his phone and didn't notice them at first. Sophia grabbed Dimitri's arm and pulled him around the corner, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might explode. They pressed themselves against the wall and listened. "No, I can't do the interview today," Hamilton was saying into his phone. "I need to focus on fixing whatever's wrong with my driving. I'll talk to you later." They heard his footsteps walking away, then the elevator doors closing again. Sophia and Dmitri waited for what felt like forever before peering around the corner. The hallway was empty. "He's gone," Sophia whispered. "This is our chance." "Our chance for what?" Dmitri demanded. "Sophia, tell me the truth. What are we really doing here?" Sophia looked at her friend, this boy who had taught her about security systems, thinking it was just a game. She thought about Elena dying in a hospital bed. She thought about 200,000 euros and watches worth millions. "I'm gonna take one watch," she said quietly. "Just one, to pay for my mother's surgery." Dmitri stared at her like she had grown a second head. "You want to steal from Lewis Hamilton?" "Not steal, borrow. He has so many watches, he'll never miss one." "Sophia, that's still stealing. And it's Lewis Hamilton. Do you know how much trouble we'll get in?" "My mother is dying, Dmitri. She has 10 days before they stop her treatment. One watch could save her life." Dmitri ran his hands through his hair, looking panicked. "There has to be another way." "What other way? We don't have family with money. We don't know anyone who can help. This is the only way." "What about asking him for help? Maybe he would." "Ask a stranger for 200,000 euros? He'd call security." Before I finished the sentence, they stared at each other in the empty hallway. Sophia could see the war happening in Dmitri's mind. He wanted to help her, but he also knew how wrong this was. "If we get caught, we'll go to jail," he said finally. "If we don't try, my mother will die." Dmitri was quiet for a long moment. Then he slowly reached into his backpack and pulled out the EMP device. 10 minutes, he said. "The device will give us 10 minutes before the alarms reset. After that, we run and never speak of this again." Sophia felt a rush of gratitude and guilt. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. I'm probably the stupidest person alive for helping you do this." Sophia used her master key card to open the door to apartment 40501. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the card steady. The door clicked open, and they stepped inside Lewis Hamilton's penthouse. Sophia had cleaned luxury apartments before, but this was different. This wasn't just expensive, it was personal. The walls were covered with racing photos and trophies. There were pictures of Hamilton with his father, both of them smiling at racetracks around the world. "Where's the watchroom?" Dmitri whispered. Sophia pointed toward a hallway leading deeper into the apartment. "Back there. But first we need to disable the alarms." Dmitri was already studying a security panel near the front door. "This is more complex than I expected. 3 different systems, just like you said." He attached his device to the main security box and flipped the red switch. The EMP generator hummed quietly, and one by one, the lights on the security panel went dark. "Got it. Dmitri said. But remember, 10 minutes maximum. They moved quickly through the apartment. Sophia led the way, her heart hammering in her chest. Every step felt like walking deeper into a nightmare. The watchroom was at the end of a long hallway, behind a heavy wooden door. Sophia expected it to be locked, but the handle turned easily in her hand. The door swung open, and Sophia gasped. She had seen the room briefly when she was cleaning with Marie, but she hadn't really looked at it carefully. Now standing in the doorway, she understood why people called it the most valuable watch collection in the world. The room glowed with soft lighting that made every watch face shine like a small sun. There were dozens of cases lining the walls, each one holding timepieces that cost more than most people's houses. Holy! Dmitri stopped himself from swearing. Sophia, do you have any idea how much money is in this room? Sophia walked toward the center case, where the most special watches were displayed. There was the red Richard Mille worth over 2 million euros. There was a vintage Patek Philippe that looked like it belonged in a museum. And in the center of it all, in a place of honor, sat a simple watch with a black face and steel bracelet. The card next to it read, Anthony Hamilton GMT Master. Sophia stared at that watch and felt her heart break a little. This wasn't just Hamilton's collection. These were his memories. Each watch told a story, represented a moment in his life or his father's life. Sophia, we need to hurry, Dmitri said, checking his phone. 5 minutes left. Sophia reached toward the Richard Mille, worth enough money to save her mother's life 10 times over. But her hand stopped inches from the case. She found herself staring at Anthony Hamilton's simple GMT Master instead. Something about it reminded her of her own grandfather's watch, the one Elena kept in a box at home. Sophia, Dmitri whispered urgently. Time's running out. Sophia's hand hovered over the case locks. All she had to do was open one case, take one watch, and her mother would live. It should have been easy. So why couldn't she make herself do it? Suddenly, an alarm started beeping. Not the building's main alarm. Something else. Something they hadn't expected. What's that? Sophia asked. Dmitri's face went pale. That's not from the security system. That's something else entirely. The beeping was coming from a small device on Hamilton's desk. A device connected directly to his phone. Sophia's blood turned to ice as she realized what it was. A silent alarm that alerted Hamilton directly when someone entered his watchroom. He knows, she whispered. He knows we're here. Dmitri grabbed her arm. We have to go, now. But as they turned to run, they heard the sound that made Sophia's world collapse. The elevator doors opening at the end of the hall. Lewis Hamilton had come home early, and he was about to catch them red-handed in his most sacred space. Run, Dmitri whispered, grabbing Sophia's arm. But Sophia stood frozen in the watchroom, staring at the cases full of timepieces. Her feet wouldn't move. Her hands wouldn't work. All she could think about was her mother dying in 10 days. Sophia. Come on. Dmitri pulled harder at her arm. They heard footsteps in the hallway, getting closer. Heavy, quick footsteps of someone who knew exactly where he was going. Dmitri looked around desperately for another way out. But there was only one door to the watchroom. They were trapped. The closet, Sophia whispered, pointing to a small door in the corner. They ran across the room and squeezed into a tiny storage closet just as the footsteps reached the watchroom door. Through the crack in the closet door, they could see everything. Lewis Hamilton burst into the room, his face dark with anger. He was still wearing his racing jacket, but he had obviously run back from the parking garage when his alarm went off. He looked around the room quickly, checking each case. Nothing was missing, but he knew someone had been there. The security system was still down and his personal alarm was beeping loudly. Hamilton pulled out his phone and started to dial, probably calling building security. But then he stopped and put the phone away. Instead, he walked slowly around the room, looking at everything carefully. His eyes were sharp and intelligent, taking in every detail. I know you're in here, he said in a calm voice. My alarm doesn't go off by accident. Sophia felt Dmitri shaking next to her. She could hear her own heart beating so loud she was sure Hamilton could hear it too. You can come out now, or I can call security and let them find you. Your choice. Sophia closed her eyes and thought about Elena. If she was caught now, she would go to jail and her mother would die alone. But if she stayed hidden, Maybe Hamilton would give up and leave. "I'm not going anywhere," Hamilton continued. "I have all day. And trust me, building security has dogs that can find anyone." Sophia's hope crumbled. They were caught. It was over. She pushed open the closet door and stepped out, her hands raised like she had seen in movies. "Please don't call the police." Hamilton spun around, clearly surprised. He had been expecting adults, not children. His angry expression changed to two when he saw Sophia in her cleaning uniform. "You're just a kid," he said. Dmitri emerged from the closet behind Sophia, his face red with embarrassment and fear. "We're really sorry, Mr. Hamilton. We didn't take anything." Hamilton looked at both of them for a long moment. Sophia could see him thinking, trying to understand what was happening. "How did you get in here?" he asked. Sophia held up her master key card. "I work for the cleaning company." "And the alarms?" Dmitri reluctantly pulled the EMP device from his backpack. "I made this. It shuts down electronic systems temporarily." Hamilton studied the device with what looked like professional interest. "That's actually quite impressive for someone your age. Where did you learn to build something like that?" "My father taught me," Dmitri said quietly. "What does your father do?" Dmitri's face went even redder. "He's in prison for stealing things." Sophia expected Hamilton to get angry or call security immediately. Instead, he sat down in a chair near his desk and really looked at them. "So let me understand this," he said. "A cleaning girl and a thief's son broke into my apartment to steal my watches." "We didn't steal anything," Sophia said quickly. "We were just looking." "Looking at what exactly?" Sophia stared at the floor. "At how much money was in here. And what were you planning to do with that information?" This was the moment of truth. Sophia could keep lying, or she could tell him everything and hope for mercy she didn't deserve. She looked up at Hamilton and saw something she hadn't expected in his eyes. Not anger, but curiosity. Like he genuinely wanted to understand. "My mother is dying," Sophia said, her voice barely a whisper. "She needs surgery that costs 200,000 euros. We have 10 days to find the money or they'll stop her treatment." Hamilton's expression changed completely. The suspicion disappeared, replaced by something that looked like surprise and sadness. "Go on," he said gently. "I know it was wrong to come here. I know I'm a terrible person for even thinking about it. But when I heard how much your watches were worth, I thought..." Sophia started crying. "I thought maybe if I took just one, no one would even notice, and it would save her life." Dmitri put his hand on Sophia's shoulder. "Her mother is really sick, Mr. Hamilton. Sophia's not a bad person. She's just scared." Hamilton was quiet for a long time, studying Sophia's face. "What kind of surgery does your mother need?" Sophia wiped her eyes with her sleeve. "The doctors call it something with a long name. She has tumors that are growing, and they need to remove them before they spread." "And you're only 12 years old?" "Yes, sir." "What about your father? Other family?" "It's just me and my mother. We came here from Barcelona 3 years ago so she could get better treatment." Hamilton stood up and walked to the center of his collection, to the case holding his father's GMT Mester. He stared at it for a long moment. "My father died when I was 22, he said finally. "Heart attack. Very sudden. I would have given every watch in this room to have more time with him." Sophia felt a new wave of guilt. Here she was, planning to steal from someone who had also lost a parent. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Hamilton turned back to them. "How did you know about my collection?" "I overheard some guests talking at the hotel where I work. They said you had $50 million worth of watches. And you thought that made it okay to steal from me?" Sophia shook her head. "No, I knew it was wrong. But I didn't know what else to do." Hamilton walked over to his desk and picked up his phone. Sophia's heart stopped. He was going to call the police after all. But instead of dialing, he set the phone down and looked at them again. "I'm not going to call security," he said. Sophia and Dmitri both looked up in shock. "I'm not going to call the police either. But I want you to do something for me. Anything," Sophia said quickly. "I want you to tell me about your mother. Everything. Her name, her condition, which hospital she's at. I want to understand exactly what's happening." Sophia didn't understand why he wanted to know, but she told him everything. About Elena's illness, about the bills they couldn't pay, about working 2 jobs and still not having enough money. Hamilton listened without interrupting. When Sophia finished, he was quiet for a long time. You said your mother's name is Elena Martinez? Yes, sir. And you're from Barcelona originally? Yes. We lived above my grandfather's old watch shop until he died. Something strange happened to Hamilton's face when Sophia mentioned the watch shop. He looked surprised, almost shocked. What was your grandfather's name? He asked. Eduardo Martinez. He was a watchmaker, but his shop closed when he got sick. Hamilton went very still. Eduardo Martinez from Barcelona? He had a shop in the Gothic Quarter? Sophia nodded, confused. Yes. How did you know that? Hamilton didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked to his desk and opened a drawer. He pulled out an old photograph and handed it to Sophia. The picture showed two young men standing next to a race car. One was black, one was white. They were both smiling and had their arms around each other's shoulders. Sophia recognized one of the men immediately. It was a young Lewis Hamilton. But the other man, that's my grandfather, Sophia whispered, staring at the photo. But how? Your grandfather Eduardo and my father Anthony were friends. Hamilton said quietly. They met at a racing event in Spain when I was a child. Eduardo fixed my father's watch when it broke, and they stayed in touch for years. Sophia looked up at Hamilton, her mind spinning. My grandfather knew your father? More than that. Eduardo saved my father's life once. There was an accident at a race, and Eduardo pulled my father from a burning car. My father never forgot that. Sophia stared at the photograph, trying to understand what this meant. The last letter my father received before he died was from Eduardo. Hamilton continued. He was writing to tell my father that he was sick and that he worried about his daughter and granddaughter in Barcelona. He wrote about us. He said he hoped that someday, if his family ever needed help, someone would be there for them, the way he had been there for my father. Sophia felt like the world was spinning around her. Her grandfather had known Hamilton's father. Hamilton knew about her family's troubles. Nothing made sense anymore. Why didn't you tell me this before? Sophia asked. Hamilton smiled sadly. Because I wanted to see what kind of person you were. When I caught you in here, I could have called security immediately. But something about you reminded me of the stories my father told about Eduardo's granddaughter. He said she was smart and kind, but stubborn like her grandfather. He knew who I was this whole time. I suspected. When you told me your name, and that you were from Barcelona, I was almost certain. When you mentioned Eduardo's watch shop, I knew. Sophia looked at Dimitri, who was staring at Hamilton like he had grown wings. So what happens now? Dimitri asked. Hamilton walked back to his father's GMT Master and picked it up gently. Now, he said, I'm going to do what my father would have wanted me to do. What Eduardo would have done if our situations were reversed. He looked at Sophia with kind eyes. I'm going to help you save your mother's life. Sophia couldn't believe what she was hearing. But we tried to steal from you. You tried to save someone you love. There's a difference. For the first time in months, Sophia felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. But she had no idea that Hamilton's help would come with complications she never could have imagined. I don't understand, Sophia said, still staring at the photograph of her grandfather and Hamilton's father. You want to help us? Hamilton set down his father's GMT Master and walked to the window overlooking Monaco. When my father was starting his racing career, he had no money. We lived in a tiny apartment, and he worked 3 jobs to pay for my go-kart racing. Sophia and Dimitri listened in silence. One winter, our heating broke and we couldn't afford to fix it. My father was too proud to ask for help. We nearly froze. Hamilton turned back to them. A neighbor we barely knew paid for the repairs. He said someone had helped his family once, and he was just passing it forward. What does that have to do with us? Dimitri asked. Your grandfather saved my father's life, Sophia. Now I have the chance to save your mother's life. It's the same thing, just years later. Sophia felt overwhelmed. But 200,000 euros is so much money. Hamilton smiled. Do you know how much I made from winning races last year? More than 50 million euros. 200,000 is like a nice dinner for me. Sophia's head spun, trying to imagine that much money. But there's a problem, Hamilton continued. I can't just give you the money. Sophia's heart sank. Why not? Because your mother won't accept it. Will she? Sophia thought about Elena's pride, how she refused charity from anyone. No, she would never take money from a stranger. Exactly. So we need to find another way. Hamilton sat down at his desk and opened his laptop. Tell me more about your mother's work. What kind of cleaning does she do? She cleans office buildings at night. She's very good at it, but the work is hard and doesn't pay enough. What about during the day? She rests, mostly. The night work makes her very tired. Hamilton typed something on his computer. What if she had a different job? A better job? Sophia didn't understand. What kind of job? I need someone to help organize my watch collection. Someone who understands the value of taking care of precious things, someone trustworthy. Dimitri's eyes widened. You want to hire Sophia's mother? I want to hire both of them. Sophia after school and weekends, Elena during the day. The work would be light, cataloging watches, learning about their history, helping me keep everything organized. Sophia's mind raced. How much would you pay? Enough that Elena could afford her surgery within a month. Maybe 2 months. But she's sick, she might not be able to work very much. Then she works as much as she can. If she needs to rest, she rests. If she needs time for medical appointments, she takes it. Sophia stared at Hamilton. You would really do that? Your grandfather saved my father's life. Your mother raised a daughter brave enough to risk everything to save someone she loves. Yes, I would really do that. Dimitri shook his head in amazement. This is like something from a movie. But Sophia was thinking about the complications. What if Elena says no? What if she thinks it's charity? Then we'll have to convince her it's not charity. It's a real job with real work. Hamilton stood up and walked back to his watch collection. Actually, I really do need help with this. I have over 300 watches, and I can never keep track of which ones need servicing, which ones have interesting histories, which ones I haven't worn in years. He opened one of the cases and pulled out a watch with a black leather band. This Patek Philippe, for example. I bought it 5 years ago, but I can't remember anything about it. When was it made? Who owned it before me? Is it running properly? Sophia looked at the watch. Even she could see it was incredibly expensive and beautiful. Your grandfather was a master watchmaker. Hamilton continued. Maybe Elena learned something from him. Maybe she could help me understand these pieces better. Sophia felt a flutter of hope. She did learn some things. She used to help grandfather Eduardo in his shop when she was young. Perfect. Then it's not charity, it's hiring someone with the right skills for a job that needs doing. Hamilton closed the laptop and looked directly at Sophia. But first, I want to meet your mother. I want to see her at the hospital and understand exactly what's happening. Sophia nodded eagerly. Yes, of course. And I want you both to think very carefully about this. If Elena works for me, your lives will change. People will want to know who you are, why Lewis Hamilton hired a Spanish cleaning woman and her daughter. Dimitri frowned. What do you mean? I mean, photographers follow me everywhere. Reporters ask questions about everything I do. If they find out about Elena and Sophia, they'll want to know the whole story. Sophia hadn't thought about that. Would that be bad? It could be. Some people might say I'm just showing off, hiring people to make myself look good. Others might say Elena doesn't deserve help, or that I should help someone else instead. Hamilton sat back down, looking serious. Fame is complicated, Sophia. When you're famous, even good things you do can become problems. But you'll still help us? Yes. But I want you to understand what you're getting into. Sophia thought about Elena dying in 10 days versus dealing with photographers and reporters. It wasn't even a choice. I understand, she said. Hamilton smiled. Good. Now let's go see your mother. 20 minutes later, Sophia found herself sitting in the passenger seat of Lewis Hamilton's McLaren sports car, speeding through the streets of Monaco toward Princess Grace Hospital. Dimitri had gone home, promising to never tell anyone what had happened. This is between you and Mr. Hamilton now, he had said. But Sophia, be careful. When things seem too good to be true, sometimes they are. Now watching the city blur past the car windows, Sophia wondered if Dimitri was right. Was this really happening? Or would she wake up and find it was all a dream? Nervous? Hamilton asked, glancing at her. Very. What if my mother doesn't believe this is real? What if she does believe it? Are you ready for your life to completely change? Sophia thought about that. Her life was already changing. Elena was dying. They were about to lose their apartment. Sophia was turning into someone who broke into people's homes. It can't get worse than it is now, she said. Hamilton was quiet for a moment. Sophia, can I ask you something? Yes. When you were in my watch room, why didn't you actually take anything? You had time. You could have grabbed a watch and run. Sophia had been wondering the same thing. I don't know. When I saw all those watches, especially your father's watch, I realized they weren't just expensive things. They were your memory. And I remembered what my mother always says, that we are honest people, even when it's hard to be honest. Hamilton smiled. Your grandfather would be proud of you. But I still tried to steal from you. You tried to save your mother. There's a difference. They pulled into the hospital parking lot, and Hamilton turned off the engine. Through the windows, Sophia could see the building where Elena was probably sleeping, having no idea that her daughter's life was about to change completely. Ready? Hamilton asked. Sophia took a deep breath. Ready, as they walked toward the hospital entrance. Sophia noticed something she hadn't expected. Hamilton moved differently here than he had in his apartment. He walked faster, kept his head down, and wore sunglasses even though it was cloudy outside. People are staring, Sophia whispered. They always do, you'll get used to it. A security guard at the hospital entrance did a double take when he saw Hamilton. Excuse me, are you just visiting a friend? Hamilton said politely, and kept walking. Sophia realized this was what Hamilton had meant about complications. Even something as simple as visiting a sick person became complicated when you were famous. They took the elevator to Elena's floor, and Sophia's nervousness grew with each passing floor. How do you tell your mother that one of the most famous people in the world wants to help save her life? What if she says no? Sophia asked as they walked down the hospital hallway. Then we'll find another way to convince her. But Sophia, you have to let me do most of the talking. If this is going to work, your mother needs to trust me. They stopped outside Elena's room. Through the small window, Sophia could see her mother sleeping in the hospital bed, looking pale and thin under the white sheets. Sophia's heart broke a little. Elena looked so fragile, so different from the strong woman who had raised her. She looks worse than I expected, Hamilton said gently. She's been hiding how sick she really is. She doesn't want me to worry. Hamilton knocked softly on the door, and Elena's eyes opened. When she saw Sophia, her face lit up with a weak smile. Mi amor, you came to visit me. Mama, I brought someone to meet you. Elena sat up in bed, trying to make herself look more presentable. When Hamilton stepped into view, her eyes widened in shock. Mrs. Martinez, Hamilton said with a warm smile. My name is Lewis Hamilton. I think we need to talk. Elena looked from Hamilton to Sophia and back again, clearly confused and a little frightened. Sophia, she said in Spanish. What is happening here? Sophia looked at Hamilton, then at her mother's worried face. This was the moment that would determine everything. Mama, she said, do you remember the stories grandfather Eduardo used to tell about the English racing driver whose life he saved? Elena nodded slowly. This is his son. Elena's face went completely white, and for a moment, Sophia was afraid her mother might faint. But Elena didn't faint. Instead, she did something Sophia hadn't expected. She started to cry. Elena Martinez covered her face with her thin hands and wept like Sophia had never seen her cry before. Not the quiet tears she sometimes shed when she thought Sophia was asleep, but deep, shaking sobs that seemed to come from somewhere far inside her. Mama, what's wrong? Sophia rushed to the hospital bed, frightened by her mother's reaction. But Elena wasn't crying from sadness. When she finally looked up, her eyes were filled with something Sophia hadn't seen in years. Wonder. Eduardo told me about Anthony Hamilton, Elena whispered, looking at Lewis with amazement. He said Anthony was the finest man he ever met. He said Anthony would have done anything for his friends. Hamilton pulled a chair closer to Elena's bedside. My father felt the same way about Eduardo. He talked about him until the day he died. Elena wiped her eyes with a tissue from the bedside table. Eduardo always regretted that he never got to meet Anthony's son. He said he wanted to see if the boy had his father's good heart. What do you think? Hamilton asked with a gentle smile. Elena studied his face for a long moment. I think Eduardo would be very pleased. Sophia felt confused and left out. I don't understand. What happened between grandfather Eduardo and Mr. Hamilton's father? Elena took Sophia's hand. I never told you the whole story, mi amor. Your grandfather saved Anthony's life, yes. But Anthony saved our family too. How? When I was a young woman, just married to your father, we had no money. Your father lost his job, and we were going to lose our apartment. Eduardo was too proud to ask for help. Elena looked at Hamilton. But Anthony sent money, every month for 2 years, until your father found work again. He said Eduardo had given him a second chance at life. And he wanted to give us a second chance too. Sophia's eyes widened. Anthony Hamilton helped our family? Without his help, your father and I would have been homeless. We might never have had you. Hamilton looked surprised. My father never told me about that. He made Eduardo promise never to tell anyone. Anthony said good deeds should be private. The three of them sat in silence for a moment, understanding the weight of what Elena had shared. So you see, Elena continued, when Louis says he wants to help us, it's not the first time a Hamilton has saved our family. Dr. Rousseau knocked on the door and entered with his clipboard. When he saw Hamilton, he did a double take but maintained his professional composure. Mrs. Martinez, I have your latest test results. Mr. Hamilton, I'm a friend of the family. Dr. Rousseau nodded and turned to Elena. I'm afraid the results aren't what we hoped. The tumors have grown faster than expected. Sophia felt her heart drop. What does that mean? It means we need to operate immediately. Not in 10 days. Not in a week. Within the next 72 hours. Elena went pale. But we don't have the money yet. I understand your situation, Mrs. Martinez. But medically, we cannot wait any longer. Hamilton stood up. Doctor, what exactly does Mrs. Martinez need? Dr. Rousseau looked uncertain about discussing private medical information with a stranger, but Elena nodded for him to continue. The surgery itself will cost approximately 150,000 euros. Post-operative care, medications, and recovery will be another 50,000. 200,000 total. And if she doesn't have the surgery? Dr. Rousseau's face was grave. Based on the rate of growth we're seeing, Mrs. Martinez has perhaps a week without intervention. Sophia grabbed her mother's hand. A week. Not 10 days. Not even 5 days. 1 week. How quickly could you schedule the surgery if payment was guaranteed? Hamilton asked. Tomorrow morning, if necessary. Hamilton pulled out his phone. Excuse me for a moment. He stepped into the hallway, and Sophia could hear him making a phone call, though she couldn't understand what he was saying. Elena squeezed Sophia's hand.
Mi amor, are you okay?
Sophia wanted to tell her mother about the attempted robbery, about how desperate she had become, about the terrible things she had been willing to do. But looking at Elena's trusting face, she couldn't find the words. I was so scared, Mama. I didn't know what to do. But you found help. Somehow you found exactly the right help. If only Elena knew the whole truth. Hamilton returned to the room, putting his phone back in his pocket. Dr. Rousseau, Mrs. Martinez is scheduled for surgery tomorrow at 8 a.m. All costs have been covered. Elena sat up straighter. Mr. Hamilton, I cannot accept charity. It's not charity, Hamilton interrupted gently. It's payment in advance for work you'll be doing for me. What work? Hamilton sat back down. I have a collection of over 300 watches that need to be properly cataloged and maintained. I need someone with knowledge of timepieces, someone I can trust with valuable items. Elena looked skeptical. I haven't worked with watches since I was a teenager helping my father. But you learned from Eduardo Martinez, one of Barcelona's finest watchmakers. That knowledge is worth more to me than money. You would pay me 200,000 euros to organize watches? I would pay you a fair salary for full-time work. Over the course of a year, it would total much more than 200,000 euros. Elena was quiet for a long time, thinking, there's something else. Hamilton continued. Sophia would work with you after school and on weekends. She's clearly intelligent and responsible. Sophia felt a stab of guilt. If only Hamilton knew how irresponsible she had been. What if I'm not well enough to work? Elena asked. Then you work when you can and rest when you need to. The collection has waited 3 years to be properly organized. It can wait a little longer. Dr. Rousseau cleared his throat. Mrs. Martinez, I need an answer about the surgery. Elena looked at Sophia, then at Hamilton, then at her own hands folded in her lap. My father always said that pride is a luxury poor people cannot afford, she said finally. And Sophia needs her mother more than I need my pride. Sophia felt tears of relief start to flow. Yes, Elena said to Dr. Rousseau. Schedule the surgery. 2 hours later, Sophia and Hamilton sat in the hospital cafeteria while Elena underwent pre-surgery preparations upstairs. Are you okay? Hamilton asked, noticing Sophia picking at her sandwich without eating. I keep thinking about what would have happened if I hadn't met Dimitri. If I hadn't learned about your watch collection. If I hadn't gotten the job at your building. You mean if you hadn't tried to rob me? Sophia looked up in surprise. She hadn't expected Hamilton to mention that so directly. You don't have to pretend it didn't happen, Sophia. You made a plan to steal from me to save your mother's life. Are you angry about it? Hamilton thought for a moment. I was angry when I first caught you. But then I realized something. You're 12 years old, and you were willing to risk everything for someone you love. That takes a kind of courage most adults don't have. But it was wrong. Yes, it was wrong. But your reasons weren't wrong. Sophia finally took a bite of her sandwich. Dimitri warned me that when things seem too good to be true, they usually are. Is this too good to be true? Maybe. But sometimes life surprises you. Sometimes the right people find each other at exactly the right time. Sophia thought about her grandfather Eduardo and Hamilton's father Anthony, meeting by chance at a racing event decades ago. Was this the same kind of meant-to-be meeting? Mr. Hamilton, can I ask you something? Of course. Why do you really collect so many watches? I mean, you can only wear one at a time. Hamilton smiled. Each watch tells a story. This one I'm wearing now, I bought it after my first Formula One victory. The Richard Mille in my collection? I wore it when I won my first championship here in Monaco. What about your father's watch? Hamilton's expression grew softer. That one tells the most important story of all. It reminds me that everything I have came from someone who loved me enough to sacrifice for my dreams. Sophia understood. Like my mother working 2 jobs so I can go to school. Exactly like that. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, both thinking about the people who had loved them enough to sacrifice. Sophia, there's something I need to tell you about tomorrow. What? The surgery will take several hours. You'll be here all day. And there might be reporters. Sophia frowned. Why would reporters come to a hospital? Because someone will recognize me and call the media. They'll want to know why Lewis Hamilton is spending the day at Princess Grace Hospital. What will you tell them? The truth. That I'm helping the family of an old friend. Sophia felt nervous. Will they want to talk to me? Probably. But you don't have to say anything. Just let me handle it. Sophia thought about Dimitri's warning again. Fame really did complicate everything. Mr. Hamilton, what if the surgery doesn't work? Hamilton reached across the table and took Sophia's hand. Then we'll deal with whatever comes next. But your mother is strong, and Dr. Rousseau is one of the best surgeons in Europe. How do you know that? Because I called 3 other doctors while I was in the hallway. They all said the same thing. If they needed surgery, they would want Dr. Rousseau to do it. Sophia felt another wave of gratitude. Hamilton hadn't just paid for the surgery. He had made sure Elena would have the best possible care. Thank you, she whispered. Thank your grandfather, Eduardo. I'm just keeping a promise that should have been kept years ago. A nurse approached their table. Excuse me, are you here for Mrs. Martinez? Yes, Sophia said, standing quickly. Is something wrong? Nothing's wrong. She's asking for you. Sophia and Hamilton followed the nurse back upstairs to Elena's room. Elena was lying in bed wearing a surgical gown, looking nervous but determined. Mi amor. Come here, Elena said, holding out her hand. Sophia took her mother's hand and sat on the edge of the bed. Tomorrow will be scary, Elena said. But no matter what happens, I want you to know that you are the best thing that ever happened to me. Mama, don't talk like that. The surgery will work. I hope so. But if something goes wrong, I want you to know that Lewis will take care of you. Sophia looked at Hamilton in alarm. They had never discussed what would happen if Elena didn't survive. Elena, Hamilton said gently, nothing is going to happen to you. But if it did, Sophia would never be alone. Elena smiled through her tears. Thank you. My father was right about the Hamilton family. A different nurse entered the room. Mrs. Martinez, it's time for your pre-surgery medication. Sophia hugged her mother tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair. I love you, Mama. I love you too, mi amor. More than all the stars. As the nurses prepared Elena for surgery, Sophia and Hamilton stepped into the hallway. She's going to be okay, right? Sophia asked. Hamilton looked through the window at Elena, who was smiling bravely despite her fear. She's one of the strongest people I've ever met, he said. And she has the best reason in the world to fight. Sophia followed his gaze to her mother's face and saw the same strength that had carried them from Barcelona to Monaco through 3 years of struggle and sickness. Tomorrow would determine everything. But tonight, for the first time in months, Sophia felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. Sophia couldn't sleep that night. She sat by her window, looking out at the lights of Monaco and thinking about everything that had happened. In one day, her life had changed completely. Tomorrow, her mother would have surgery that could save her life. At 5 a.m., Sophia's phone rang. It was Hamilton. Sophia, I'm sorry to call so early. Are you awake? I couldn't sleep. Neither could I. Would you like to come to my apartment? I have something I want to show you before we go to the hospital. Sophia took a taxi to Tour Odeon, still amazed that Lewis Hamilton was calling her at dawn like they were old friends. The building's security guard recognized her now and waved her through without questions. Hamilton was waiting in his apartment wearing jeans and a simple t-shirt. He looked younger without his racing jacket, more like a regular person than a famous driver. How are you feeling? He asked. Scared. Excited. I don't know. That's normal. Come with me. He led Sophia to his watchroom, but this time everything felt different. Yesterday, this room had been a target for theft. Today, it was going to be Elena's workplace. I spent the night thinking about what your mother said, Hamilton told her. About Eduardo teaching her to work with watches when she was young. He walked to his desk and opened a drawer Sophia had never noticed before. Inside were old papers, letters, and documents. I found these after my father died. Letters he kept from friends around the world. Hamilton pulled out a thick envelope with Spanish stamps. These are letters from Eduardo to my father. 23 letters over 15 years. Sophia's eyes widened. My grandfather wrote to your father for 15 years? Look at this one. Hamilton handed her a letter dated just 2 months before Eduardo died. Read the last paragraph. Sophia read aloud in English, translating from her grandfather's Spanish. My dear friend Anthony, I am getting old and sick. My daughter Elena is a good woman, but she has troubles of her own. I worry about my granddaughter Sophia. She is very smart, like her grandmother was, but she will need guidance as she grows up. I hope someday someone will watch over her the way you and I have watched over each other. Sophia looked up at Hamilton with tears in her eyes. He was worried about me, very worried. And look at this. Hamilton showed her another letter, written a year earlier. Sophia has excellent hands for delicate work, just like her grandmother. Elena teaches her some things about watches. But I wish I could teach her more. Perhaps someday she will understand that time is the most precious thing we have. And the people who measure time are guardians of something sacred. Sophia felt a chill run through her. He wanted to teach me about watches? More than that. Read this part. Sophia read, I have saved one special watch for Sophia. It was her grandmother's, made by a master craftsman in Barcelona many years ago. When Sophia is old enough to understand its value, not the money value, but the real value, Elena will give it to her. I never knew about any special watch, Sophia said. Hamilton smiled mysteriously. Maybe because it's not in Barcelona anymore. What do you mean? Yesterday, while you and your mother were talking to Dr. Rousseau, I made some phone calls. I called the landlord of your old building in Barcelona. Sophia's heart started beating faster. Why? Because I wanted to know what happened to Eduardo's watch shop. The landlord told me something interesting. Hamilton reached into the desk drawer again and pulled out a small wooden box Sophia had never seen before. 3 years ago, when Elena was packing to move to Monaco, she sent a package to my father's old address in England. The package was forwarded to me after my father died, but I never opened it. Sophia stared at the box. What's inside? Why don't you open it and see? With shaking hands, Sophia lifted the lid of the wooden box. Inside, nestled in soft cloth, was the most beautiful watch she had ever seen. It was smaller than Hamilton's racing watches, clearly made for a woman. The face was white with delicate lou numbers, and the gold case was engraved with tiny flowers. The leather band was dark blue, almost navy. But what took Sophia's breath away was the inscription on the back, Para Sofia, con amor eterno. Abuela Carmen, for Sophia with eternal love. Grandmother Carmen, 1982. Sophia whispered, translating the Spanish, your grandmother had this watch made the year your mother was born. Hamilton explained. Eduardo wrote that Carmen wanted Sophia to have it when she was old enough to understand that some things are more valuable than money. Sophia carefully lifted the watch from the box. It was lighter than she expected, and when she held it to her ear, she could hear the soft tick of its movement. It still works? Eduardo kept it perfectly maintained until he died. Then Elena took care of it until she sent it to my father for safekeeping. Sophia couldn't believe what she was holding. My grandmother made this for me? She made it for the granddaughter she would never meet, but loved anyway. Sophia fastened the watch around her wrist. It fit perfectly, as if it had been waiting for her all these years. Hamilton, why didn't Elena tell me about this? Because she was waiting for the right time, a time when you would understand its real meaning. Sophia looked at the watch on her wrist, then at Hamilton's collection of million-dollar timepieces. What is its real meaning? Hamilton sat down next to her. Sophia, what do you think is the most expensive watch in this room? Sophia pointed to the red Richard Mille. That one. You said it cost over 2 million euros. What about the most valuable watch in this room? Sophia thought for a moment, then pointed to Hamilton's father's GMT Master. Your father's watch. Exactly. Because value and price are different things. Hamilton picked up his father's GMT Master and held it next to Sophia's grandmother's watch. These two watches probably cost about the same when they were made. A few $100s each. But they're both priceless now because of what they represent. What do they represent? Love that doesn't end when someone dies. Your grandmother loved you before you were born. My father loved me enough to work 3 jobs. That love is still here, in these watches, every time we look at them. Sophia understood now why Elena had sent the watch to Anthony Hamilton for safekeeping. She knew that someday Sophia would need to understand the difference between expensive things and precious things. Does this mean I'm really gonna work with your watch collection? If your mother's surgery goes well, yes. And Sophia, I think you're gonna be very good at it. Why? Because you already understand what most people don't. That these aren't just expensive toys. They're memories made real. Sophia looked around the room with new eyes. Each watch had a story, a meaning, a connection to someone Hamilton loved or something important that had happened to him. Is this why you collect so many? Partly, but also because I grew up poor. And when you grow up poor, you never stop being afraid that everything might disappear. Sophia nodded. She understood that feeling perfectly. Hamilton's phone rang. He looked at the caller ID and frowned. I have to take this. It's my racing team manager. Sophia listened as Hamilton talked on the phone, though she couldn't understand everything they were discussing. But she could tell from Hamilton's voice that something was wrong. What do you mean the car isn't ready? Hamilton said. The Monaco Grand Prix is in 2 weeks. Sophia's stomach dropped. The Monaco Grand Prix, one of the most important races of the year. And Hamilton would miss practice time because he was helping her and Elena. No, I can't come in today. Hamilton continued. I have something more important to do. When Hamilton hung up, Sophia could see worry in his face. Is everything okay? She asked. My team is having problems with the car setup for Monaco. They want me to spend all day at the track working on it. But you can't, because of us. I can't, because your mother is having surgery today, and that's more important than any race. Sophia felt terrible. Mr. Hamilton, you don't have to stay at the hospital. I can be there alone. Sophia, look at me. Hamilton's voice was serious. Racing is my job. It's what I do for money. But what we're doing today, helping your mother, honoring the friendship between our families, that's what I do for my soul. But what if missing practice costs you the race? Hamilton smiled and picked up his father's GMT Master. My father always told me that some things are more important than winning. Family is one of those things. Sophia looked at her grandmother's watch on her wrist and felt the weight of 3 generations of love. "Are we family now?" she asked. "We've been family for 30 years, Hamilton said. "We just didn't know it yet." At 7 a.m., Hamilton's phone rang again. This time it was the hospital. "Mr. Hamilton, this is Dr. Rousseau. Mrs. Martinez is ready for surgery. Could you and Sophia come in now?" Sophia's heart jumped. It was time. As they left Hamilton's apartment, Sophia touched her grandmother's watch and made a silent promise. If Elena survived the surgery, Sophia would spend the rest of her life being worthy of all the love that had brought them to this moment. But she had no idea that in 2 hours everything would change again in ways she never could have imagined. At Princess Grace Hospital, Sophia and Hamilton sat in the surgical waiting room as Elena was wheeled into the operating room. Elena had looked so small on the hospital bed, but she had smiled bravely and squeezed Sophia's hand. "I'll see you when I wake up, my amor," she had whispered. Now Sophia sat staring at the clock on the waiting room wall. 8:15 a.m. The surgery would take 4 to 6 hours, Dr. Rousseau had said. 4 to 6 hours of not knowing if her mother would live or die. Hamilton sat beside her, also watching the clock. Every few minutes, his phone buzzed with messages from his racing team. But he ignored them all. "Mr. Hamilton," Sophia said quietly, "maybe you should go to the track. I can wait here alone." "How, Sophia, we've been through this. I'm not leaving. But your race will happen whether I'm at practice today or not. Your mother only gets one surgery." Sophia touched her grandmother's watch, feeling comforted by its gentle ticking. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. When your father died, were you scared?" Hamilton was quiet for a moment. "Terrified. I felt like I was lost in a dark place with no way out." "How did you find your way?" "I realized that my father wasn't really gone. Every time I raced, he was there with me. Every time I looked at his watch, I could hear his voice." Sophia nodded, understanding. "Like how I can feel my grandmother's love in this watch, even though I never met her." Exactly like that. At 9:30 a.m., Hamilton's phone rang. He looked at the caller ID and sighed. "I have to take this one. It's my team principal." Sophia listened as Hamilton tried to explain why he couldn't come to practice. "Marcus, I told you yesterday I have a family emergency." "No, I can't discuss it over the phone." "Yes, I understand Monaco is important. Look, some things are bigger than racing." When Hamilton hung up, he looked frustrated. "They don't understand?" Sophia asked. "They think I've lost my mind. Missing practice before Monaco is like a student skipping the day before final exams." "Maybe they're right. Maybe you should go." Hamilton turned to face Sophia. "Do you know what my father would say if he were here?" Sophia shook her head. "He would say that racing made me famous. But how I treat people when they need help is what makes me human." At 10:45 a.m., Hamilton's phone rang again. This time, the caller ID made him frown. "It's a reporter," he said. "Someone must have seen us here yesterday." He answered the call. "Hello, James. No, I'm not giving interviews today, because I'm at a hospital. That's private. No comment." Sophia felt a chill of worry. Will this be a problem? Probably. But don't worry about it. But Sophia could see Hamilton was worried too. At 11:30 a.m., a hospital administrator approached them in the waiting room. "Excuse me, are you Lewis Hamilton?" "Yes, sir. We have reporters gathering outside the hospital. They're asking questions about why you're here." Sophia's heart sank. This was exactly what Hamilton had warned her about. "What kind of questions?" Hamilton asked. "They want to know if you're injured, if you're visiting someone famous, why you're missing practice for the Monaco Grand Prix." Hamilton stood up. "Can you keep them outside?" "We can try, but they're on public property. And sir, there are photographers with telephoto lenses trying to get pictures through the windows." Sophia looked toward the windows and saw camera flashes in the distance. People were taking pictures of them right now while they waited to find out if Elena would live or die. "This is my fault," Sophia said. "If I hadn't tried to steal from you, none of this would be happening." "Sophia, none of this is your fault." But Sophia felt like it was. Hamilton was missing important practice. Reporters were bothering the hospital, and her mother was fighting for her life in surgery, all because Sophia had made a terrible decision to become a thief. At 12:15 p.m., Dr. Rousseau appeared in the waiting room doorway. Sophia's heart stopped. It was too early for the surgery to be finished. Mr. Hamilton. Sophia, could I speak with you privately? They followed him to a small office. Sophia's hands were shaking as she sat down. Is my mother okay? She asked. The surgery is going very well, Dr. Rousseau said, and Sophia felt relief flood through her. Better than we expected, actually. The tumors were smaller than our scans showed, and we've been able to remove them completely. So she's going to be okay? She should make a full recovery. But there's something else we need to discuss. Dr. Rousseau looked at Hamilton. Mr. Hamilton, I understand you've guaranteed payment for Miss Martinez's treatment. That's correct. The hospital administration has asked me to inform you that we're getting calls from reporters asking about Mrs. Martinez. They want to know who she is and why you're paying for her surgery. Sophia felt sick. What are they saying? Nothing yet. But they're very persistent. Hamilton rubbed his forehead. How much longer until Elena is out of surgery? Another 2 hours.
Minimum.
And the reporters? More are arriving. The hospital is trying to keep them away from the patients. But it's becoming difficult. Sophia stood up. We should leave. If the reporters follow us away from here, they'll leave the hospital alone. Sophia, I'm not leaving while your mother is in surgery. But what if they find out who we are? What if they discover that I tried to rob you? What if… Sophia, stop. Hamilton's voice was firm but kind. We're not running away. Whatever happens, we'll deal with it together. Dr. Rousseau looked confused. I'm sorry, rob you. Sophia felt her face turn red. She had forgotten that Dr. Rousseau didn't know the whole story. It's complicated. Hamilton said quickly. The important thing is that Elena gets the best possible care. Of course. I just wanted you to be aware of the situation outside. After Dr. Rousseau left, Sophia slumped in her chair. This is a disaster, she said. It's not a disaster. It's just complicated. What are you going to tell the reporters? Hamilton thought for a moment. The truth, that I'm helping the family of an old friend. But what if they dig deeper? What if they find out about me breaking into your apartment? Then we'll deal with that too. Sophia touched her grandmother's watch again, trying to find comfort in its steady ticking. But for the first time since receiving it, the watch felt heavy on her wrist. Mr. Hamilton, what if helping us ruins your career? Hamilton sat down next to her. Sophia, let me tell you something about careers. I've been racing for 20 years. I've won races, lost races, been loved by fans, and criticized by reporters. But do you know what I'll remember when I'm old? Sophia shook her head. I'll remember the day I helped save a little girl's mother because her grandfather once saved my father's life. I'll remember keeping a promise that was 30 years in the making. Sophia felt tears starting to form. But the Monaco Grand Prix is just another race. There will be other races. But there's only one Elena Martinez, and only one chance to do the right thing. At 1:30 p.m., Hamilton's phone rang again. This time it was a number he didn't recognize. Hello? Sophia could hear a woman's voice on the other end speaking rapidly. No, I'm not giving any interviews, Hamilton said. I don't care what other drivers are saying. That's completely false. Where did you get that information? When he hung up, Hamilton looked troubled. What did she say? Sophia asked. Some reporter is claiming that I'm having a secret relationship with a Spanish woman, and that's why I'm at the hospital. Sophia felt horrified. They think you and my mother? Apparently, they're trying to create a scandal where none exists. This is getting worse and worse. Hamilton stood up and started pacing. Sophia, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Okay. Are you sure you want our families to be connected? Because once this story gets out, your life will never be private again. Reporters will follow you. Photographers will take your picture. People will have opinions about everything you do. Sophia thought about that. She had wanted to save her mother's life, but she hadn't thought about what would happen afterward. What do you think I should do? I think you should choose based on what will make you and your mother happiest. Money isn't worth it if it makes your life miserable. Sophia looked around the small office, thinking about Elena and surgery, about the reporters outside, about the complicated future that awaited them. My mother is going to live, she said finally. Yes, and you're offering us work that will let us stay together and pay our bills. Yes, Then, whatever comes after that we'll figure out together. Hamilton smiled. Are you sure? Sophia touched her grandmother's watch one more time and felt a surge of strength from 3 generations of women who had faced impossible choices with courage. I'm sure. But as Sophia said those words, neither she nor Hamilton knew that in the parking lot outside, a photographer had just taken a picture that would change everything. A clear shot of Sophia wearing her grandmother's watch, sitting next to Lewis Hamilton in what looked like an intimate conversation. By evening, that photograph would be on the front page of every newspaper in Europe, with a headline that would make Sophia famous for all the wrong reasons. But first, Elena had to wake up. At 3:47 p.m., Dr. Rousseau emerged from the operating room with a smile that told Sophia everything she needed to know before he said a word. The surgery was a complete success, he announced. We removed all the tumors, and there were no complications. Your mother is going to be fine. Sophia collapsed into Hamilton's arms, sobbing with relief. After months of fear, weeks of desperation, and hours of terror, Elena was going to live. Can I see her? Sophia asked through her tears. She's still waking up from the anesthesia. But yes, she's been asking for you. They followed Dr. Rousseau to the recovery room, where Elena lay connected to several machines but looking more faceless than Sophia had seen her in months. Her face had color again, and her breathing was steady and strong. Mama, Sophia whispered, taking Elena's hand. Elena's eyes fluttered open, and when she saw Sophia, she smiled weakly. Mi amor. Did everything go okay? Everything went perfectly, Mama. You're going to be completely well. Elena turned her head and saw Hamilton standing beside the bed. Louis, you stayed the whole time? Of course I did. We're family, remember? Elena squeezed Sophia's hand. I had the strangest dream during surgery. I dreamed that my father, Eduardo, was talking to a man with kind eyes. They were both watching over us, making sure everything would be okay. Sophia and Hamilton exchanged a look. Maybe it wasn't a dream, Sophia said. Maybe not. Elena agreed with a tired smile. As Elena drifted back to sleep, Sophia felt like a huge weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Her mother was going to live. They would have more time together. Everything else they could figure out. But when Sophia and Hamilton returned to the waiting room an hour later, they discovered that everything else was more complicated than they had imagined. Hamilton's phone had 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. His face grew darker as he read through them. What's wrong? Sophia asked. The story broke, Hamilton said grimly. Someone leaked information to the press. He showed Sophia his phone. The headline on a British tabloid website read, Hamilton's secret affair. F1 star spotted with mysterious Spanish woman and her daughter. Sophia felt sick. They think we're a family, but not the kind of family we actually are. Hamilton scrolled through more articles. Each one was worse than the last. Monaco mystery: who is Lewis Hamilton's secret love? Hamilton misses practice for hospital rendezvous. Is this why Hamilton's racing has suffered? What are we gonna do? Sophia asked. Right now, nothing. Let me handle this. Hamilton called his publicist, a woman named Sarah who had worked with him for 10 years. Sarah, I need you to listen carefully. The woman in the hospital is not my girlfriend. She's the daughter of a man who saved my father's life 30 years ago. I'm helping pay for her surgery because it's the right thing to do. Sophia could hear Sarah's voice through the phone, speaking rapidly. No, I'm not going to deny helping them. Hamilton continued. Yes, I know Monaco practice was important. Yes, I know this looks bad, but I'm not apologizing for doing the right thing. When Hamilton hung up, he looked tired. What did she say? Sophia asked. That this is going to be a nightmare for a few days. But if we tell the truth, people will understand eventually. And if they don't understand, then they don't understand. That's their problem, not ours. Sophia wished she could be as confident as Hamilton sounded. 2 weeks later, Sophia stood in the Mercedes garage at the Monaco Grand Prix, wearing headphones and watching the most important race of the year. The 2 weeks since Elena's surgery had been a whirlwind. The media attention had been intense, but not as terrible as Sophia had feared. Once the true story came out, about Eduardo saving Anthony's life, about the family connection, about Elena's surgery, most people understood why Hamilton had helped them. There had been critics, of course. Some people said Hamilton was just trying to get good publicity. Others said he should focus on racing instead of playing hero. But there had also been supporters who admired Hamilton for putting family before fame. Elena was recovering beautifully. She was still weak, but the doctors said she would be completely healthy within a few months. She had started working with Hamilton's watch collection from her hospital bed, learning about each timepiece's history and value. "This is better than any medicine," Elena had told Sophia. "Your grandfather would be so proud to know his granddaughter is learning about watches." Now Sophia watched nervously as Hamilton prepared for the race. He had missed 2 full days of practice because of Elena's surgery, and his car wasn't handling the way he wanted it to. "He's starting in 6th position," explained Marcus Chen, Hamilton's watch expert friend who had become Sophia's teacher. "That's not terrible, but it's not great either." Sophia touched her grandmother's watch, which she now wore every day. "He'll be okay, right? Lewis Hamilton has won the Monaco Grand Prix 3 times. If anyone can come from 6th place to win, it's him." But Sophia could see the worry in the faces of Hamilton's racing team. Monaco was one of the most important races of the year, and Hamilton's championship hopes might depend on how well he did today. "Ladies and gentlemen, drivers, to your cars." Sophia watched as Hamilton climbed into his Mercedes, adjusting his helmet and gloves. Before closing his visor, he looked up at the garage where Sophia was standing and gave her a thumbs up. Sophia held up her wrist, showing him her grandmother's watch. Hamilton nodded and touched his own wrist, where he was wearing his father's GMT Master. 2 watches. 2 generations. 2 families connected by love and sacrifice. And they're off. The Monaco Grand Prix began with a roar of engines that Sophia felt in her chest. 20 drivers racing through the narrow streets of Monaco at speeds that seemed impossible. For the first 20 laps, Hamilton stayed in 6th place. Unable to pass the cars in front of him, Sophia watched the timing screens anxiously, seeing his lap times getting slower. "Something's wrong with the car," Marcus said. "He's losing time in every sector." Sophia felt her heart sink. Hamilton had sacrificed his practice time to help her family, and now it was costing him the race. On lap 30, Hamilton's voice came over the team radio. "The rear tires are going off. I'm losing grip in the corners." Sophia didn't understand all the technical language, but she could hear the frustration in Hamilton's voice. "How many laps are left?" she asked Marcus. 48. He needs to make his tires last 48 more laps. It seemed impossible. But then something magical happened. On lap 45, it started to rain. Monaco in the rain was completely different from Monaco in the sunshine. The track became slippery and dangerous. Several drivers made mistakes, spinning their cars or sliding into barriers. Hamilton, however, seemed to come alive in the rain. "Lewis is brilliant in wet conditions," Marcus explained as they watched Hamilton's car dance through the raindrops. "It's like he can see things other drivers can't see." One by one, Hamilton began passing the cars in front of him. 5th place. 4th place. 3rd place. Sophia watched in amazement as Hamilton's car seemed to glide through corners where other drivers were struggling to maintain control. "He's in 2nd place," Marcus shouted over the noise of the engines. With 15 laps to go, only one car remained ahead of Hamilton, the championship leader, driving for Red Bull Racing. "Can he catch him?" Sophia asked. "Look at the gap," Marcus pointed to the timing screen. 2 seconds and falling. Lewis is gaining half a second per lap. Sophia held her breath as Hamilton got closer and closer to the leader. With 5 laps to go, he was right behind the Red Bull car. "This is it," Marcus said. "If he's gonna make a move, it has to be now." Hamilton tried to pass on the main straight, but the Red Bull driver blocked him. He tried again in the tunnel, but couldn't get close enough. With 2 laps to go, Sophia thought the race was over. Hamilton would finish 2nd, which was good, but not great. But then, on the very last lap, the Red Bull car made a tiny mistake coming out of the casino corner. Just a small slide, barely noticeable to most people. But Hamilton saw it. He pulled alongside the Red Bull car as they approached the chicane. 2 cars side by side at 80 miles per hour with concrete barriers on both sides. Sophia stopped breathing. For a split second, it looked like they might crash. But somehow impossibly, Hamilton squeezed through a gap that seemed too small for a bicycle, let alone a Formula One car. "He's done it!" Marcus screamed. "Lewis Hamilton wins the Monaco Grand Prix." Sophia burst into tears of joy. After everything they had been through, after all the criticism and media attention, Hamilton had won the most important race of the year. As Hamilton crossed the finish line, Sophia heard his voice over the team radio, and what he said made her cry even harder. That one was for Eduardo and Anthony. For family that never dies. Later, as Hamilton stood on the top step of the podium spraying champagne and holding the Monaco Grand Prix trophy, Sophia watched from the crowd below. Elena was there too, in a wheelchair, but smiling more brightly than Sophia had seen her smile in years. "He did it, Mama, he won." "He did more than win," Elena said. "He showed the world that some things are more important than racing." When the ceremony was over, Hamilton found Sophia and Elena in the paddock. "Congratulations," Sophia said, hugging him tightly. "I couldn't have done it without you," Hamilton said. "Wearing your grandmother's watch and my father's watch together, it was like having both our families with me in the car." Elena reached up from her wheelchair and took Hamilton's hand. "Louis, I need to tell you something. During surgery, when I was dreaming about my father and your father talking to each other, they gave me a message for you." "What did they say?" "They said to tell you that the race you won today wasn't the Monaco Grand Prix. The race you won was the race to become the man they both hoped you would be." Hamilton's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Elena, for everything." Sophia looked around at the celebration, at the trophy, at the cameras and crowds and chaos of Formula One racing. 6 weeks ago, she had been a desperate girl planning to steal from a stranger. Today, she was part of a family that spanned 2 generations and 2 countries, bound together by love and sacrifice, and the understanding that some things are more valuable than money. But the most amazing part wasn't the race or the trophy or even Elena's recovery. The most amazing part was that Sophia finally understood what her grandfather, Eduardo, had meant when he wrote that time was the most precious thing we have. Time wasn't about hours and minutes and seconds ticking by on a watch. Time was about the moments that mattered. A father working 3 jobs for his son's dreams, a grandfather saving a stranger's life, a mother risking everything for her daughter, a famous driver choosing family over fame. Time was about love that lasted longer than any lifetime. And as Sophia watched Hamilton celebrate his victory while wearing his father's watch, she knew that their story was just beginning. 6 months after the Monaco Grand Prix, Sophia stood in the renovated Martinez watch shop in Barcelona's Gothic Quarter, carefully adjusting the hands on a vintage Omega timepiece. Through the shop's front window, she could see tourists walking through the narrow stone streets, many of them stopping to look at the beautiful watches displayed in the window. The shop looked completely different from the dusty, abandoned place Sophia remembered from her childhood. The walls were painted warm cream, the display cases gleamed with soft lighting, and everywhere there were photographs showing the shop's history. Eduardo at his workbench, young Elena learning to repair movements, and Sophia's grandmother Carmen wearing the watch that now lived on Sophia's wrist. "How does it look?" Elena asked, walking over to check Sophia's work. Elena moved easily now, with no pain or weakness. Her hair had grown back thick and shiny, and her face had filled out until she looked like the beautiful young woman Sophia had seen in old photographs. "Perfect," Elena said, examining the Omega. "Your grandfather would be amazed at how quickly you were learning." Sophia smiled. Working with watches felt as natural as breathing. Her hands seemed to know exactly how to handle the tiny gears and springs, and she could sense when a timepiece wasn't running properly just by listening to its rhythm. The shop bell chimed, and Hamilton walked in carrying coffee and pastries from the cafe down the street. "Good morning, ladies," he said, setting the bag on the counter. "How's business today?" "Wonderful," Elena replied. Mrs. Garcia brought in her husband's Rolex from 1965, and Mr. Pujol wants us to find him a vintage Cartier for his anniversary. Hamilton had been true to his word about the job. Elena and Sophia worked in the Barcelona shop during the week, and once a month they flew to Monaco to help with Hamilton's collection. It was the perfect arrangement. Elena got to honor her father's legacy while earning enough money to live comfortably, and Sophia learned skills that connected her to 3 generations of her family. "Any word from Dimitri?" Hamilton asked. Sophia nodded toward the back room. "He's working on that complicated Patek Philippe movement, the one with the moon phases." Dimitri had moved to Barcelona 6 months ago when his father Alexei was released from prison. Alexei had decided to start a new life helping with security for the watch shop, using his knowledge of theft to protect valuable timepieces instead of stealing them. He's gotten really good at the technical repairs, Sophia said. Sometimes I think he understands the electronic parts better than I do. Hamilton pulled out his phone and showed them a message. I have some news. The story about our family is going to be in a book. Sophia looked up from the watch she was cleaning. What kind of book? A writer named Sarah Mitchell wants to tell the story of how our families found each other. She thinks it shows that good things can happen when people help each other. Elena frowned. Will she use our real names? Only if we want her to. She says she can change the names if we prefer privacy. Sophia thought about that. 6 months ago, she would have wanted to hide from any attention. But now, after seeing how their story had inspired other people to help families in need, she felt differently. I think we should use our real names, Sophia said. Maybe our story will help other people believe that good things are possible. Elena nodded. Eduardo always said that stories of kindness should be shared, not hidden. Hamilton smiled. Then it's settled. Sarah will start interviewing us next month. The shop bell chimed again, and a familiar face appeared, Dr. Rousseau from Princess Grace Hospital. Doctor, Elena exclaimed. What a wonderful surprise. I'm in Barcelona for a medical conference, he explained. I couldn't leave without seeing how you're doing. As you can see, I'm perfect, Elena said, spinning around to show how healthy she looked. Dr. Rousseau examined Elena with a doctor's professional eye. You look remarkable. Better than I dared hope. The work makes me happy, Elena said. Happy people heal faster. And how is our young watch expert? Dr. Rousseau asked Sophia. Sophia held up the Omega she had been working on.
I think I'm getting good at this.
She's brilliant, Hamilton said proudly. She understands timepieces in ways that can't be taught. It's in her blood. Dr. Rousseau stayed for an hour, admiring the shop and listening to stories about the watches Elena and Sophia had repaired. When he left, he shook hands with all of them. Thank you, he said to Hamilton, for showing me that sometimes the best medicine isn't what we give patients in the hospital. Sometimes it's what happens when people care for each other. That evening, Sophia, Elena, Hamilton, Dmitri, and Alexei had dinner together at a small restaurant near the shop. It had become their weekly tradition, a family dinner where they shared stories and planned for the week ahead. I have an announcement, Hamilton said as they finished their pavela. I've decided to retire from Formula One racing at the end of this season. Everyone stopped eating and stared at him. Why? Sophia asked. You just won Monaco, and you're having a great year. Hamilton smiled. Because I found something more important than racing. Working with all of you, helping preserve the history of timepieces, carrying on the traditions that Eduardo started. This feels more meaningful than driving in circles. Elena reached across the table and took Hamilton's hand. Are you sure? Racing has been your whole life. Racing made me famous, Hamilton said. But this work, this family we've created, this makes me happy. Alexei, who'd been quiet during dinner, spoke up. Louis, may I ask you something? Of course. Why did you really help Sophia and Elena? I mean, I understand about your father and Eduardo being friends, but there must have been easier ways to honor that friendship. Hamilton was quiet for a moment, thinking about the question. When I caught Sophia in my watch room, I saw something in her eyes that reminded me of myself as a child. Desperation, yes, but also love. She was willing to risk everything for someone she cared about. He paused, looking around the table at their faces. I grew up poor, but I always had my father's love. Sophia was facing the possibility of losing that love, of being completely alone in the world. I couldn't let that happen. But you could have just paid for the surgery anonymously, Dmitri pointed out. True, but then I wouldn't have gotten to know them. I wouldn't have learned about Elena's knowledge of watches, or Sophia's natural talent, or the joy of working with my hands instead of just driving fast cars. Hamilton picked up his water glass as if making a toast. I helped them because it was the right thing to do. But they saved me too. They gave me a purpose beyond winning races. Sophia felt tears starting to form. We didn't save you, you saved us. We saved each other, Elena said simply. That's what families do. Later that night, Sophia sat in her bedroom above the watch shop, writing in the journal she had started deeping. She wrote about the day's work, about Dr. Rousseau's visit, about Hamilton's retirement announcement, But mostly, she wrote about the feeling of belonging somewhere, of being part of something bigger than herself. 6 months ago, she had been a desperate girl planning to steal from a stranger. Tonight, she was part of a family that spanned 2 countries and 3 generations, bound together by love and watches and the understanding that some treasures couldn't be bought or sold. Her grandmother's watch ticked softly on her wrist, keeping perfect time, but Sophia had learned that the most important time wasn't measured in hours and minutes. The most important time was the time you spent with people you loved, doing work that mattered, creating memories that would last longer than any lifetime. Sophia looked out her window at the narrow Barcelona streets, where her grandfather Eduardo had once walked, carrying his tools and his dreams of making beautiful timepieces. 3 generations later, his granddaughter was doing the same work in the same place, surrounded by the same love that had guided him. But now there was something new in the story. The knowledge that when you helped others, you didn't lose anything. You gained everything. Sophia closed her journal and prepared for bed, already looking forward to tomorrow's work. There were watches to repair, stories to preserve, and a family to love. In the kitchen below, she could hear Elena and Hamilton talking quietly about plans for the shop, their voices mixing with the gentle ticking of dozens of timepieces. It was the sound of time well spent, of love that lasted, of treasures that couldn't be stolen because they lived in the heart instead of in cases. Sophia fell asleep smiling, her grandmother's watch keeping time beside her pillow, knowing that she was exactly where she belonged, doing exactly what she was meant to do, surrounded by exactly the right people. The little girl who had once planned to steal time had learned instead to treasure it. And that made all the difference. 1 year after Hamilton's retirement from Formula One, Sophia stood in front of a crowd of reporters and camera crews in the main hall of the Monaco Palace. She was wearing her best dress and her grandmother's watch, and she felt more nervous than she had ever felt in her life. Today was the day Hamilton was donating 20 of his most valuable watches to create the Eduardo Martinez Foundation for Children's Medical Care. The foundation would help families around the world pay for surgeries and treatments their children needed. "Ladies and gentlemen," said Prince Albert of Monaco from the podium, "today we celebrate not just a generous donation, but a story that shows the best of human nature." Sophia looked out at the crowd and saw faces she recognized. Dr. Rousseau was there, smiling proudly. Marcus Chen sat in the front row next to Dmitri and Alexei. Elena stood beside Hamilton, both of them beaming with pride. "I would like to invite Sophia Martinez to tell you about her grandfather's legacy," Prince Albert announced. Sophia's hands were shaking as she walked to the microphone. A year ago, she couldn't have imagined standing in front of so many important people. But working in the watch shop had given her confidence she never knew she had. "My grandfather Eduardo Martinez was a master watchmaker in Barcelona," Sophia began, her voice stronger than she expected. "He believed that timepieces were sacred because they measure the most precious thing we have, time with the people we love." She paused, looking at Elena and Hamilton. "A year and a half ago, my mother was dying, and I made a terrible decision. I decided to steal from Mr. Hamilton to pay for her surgery." There were gasps from the crowd. This was the first time Sophia had publicly admitted to her attempted theft. "But when I stood in Mr. Hamilton's watchroom, surrounded by all those beautiful timepieces, I couldn't do it, because I realized that his watches weren't just expensive objects. They were his memories, his connections to people he loved." Sophia touched her grandmother's watch. "Today, Mr. Hamilton is giving away watches worth millions of euros. But he's not really giving away watches. He's giving away the chance for other families to create their own precious memories together." The crowd applauded, and Sophia felt a warm glow of pride. She had come so far from the desperate girl who had once planned to steal. Hamilton stepped up to the microphone next. "Sophia is too modest to tell you the whole truth," he said. "Yes, she planned to steal from me. But when the moment came, her conscience stopped her. That moment of honesty changed both our lives forever." He gestured toward the display cases holding the watches he was donating. "These watches are worth approximately 40 million euros. They include some of the rarest timepieces in the world. But their real value isn't in money." Hamilton picked up a vintage Rolex Daytona from the display. "This watch was made in 1963. I bought it because it was beautiful and rare. But its true value comes from what happened while I owned it. The day I wore it when Sophia and Elena became part of my family. He set the watch back down and picked up a Richard Mille. This watch cost me 2.3 million euros. I wore it when I won my first Monaco Grand Prix, but its real worth comes from the lesson it taught me, that some victories matter more than others. Hamilton looked directly at Sophia and Elena. The greatest collection I own isn't the watches in these cases. It's the collection of memories I've made with the people I love. And that collection gets more valuable every day. After the ceremony, Sophia, Elena, Hamilton, Dmitri, and Alexei walked through the palace gardens. The Mediterranean sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. "I'm proud of you," Elena told Sophia. "It took courage to tell the truth about what you planned to do. I wanted people to understand that good things can come from mistakes." Sophia replied, "If I hadn't tried to steal from Louis, we never would have found each other." Dmitri laughed. "My father always said that sometimes the best thing that can happen to a thief is getting caught by the right person." Alexei nodded. "Getting caught by Louis changed all our lives. Now I use my knowledge to protect valuable things instead of stealing them." They reached a bench overlooking the harbor, where Hamilton's old Formula One cars were displayed in a small museum. Hamilton sat down and looked at the cars he used to drive. "Do you miss racing?" Sophia asked. "Sometimes," Hamilton admitted. "I miss the speed, the competition, the feeling of being the best in the world at something. But I don't miss the emptiness. Racing made me famous, but it didn't make me happy. Working with you, preserving your grandfather's legacy, helping families through the foundation, that makes me happy." Elena sat down next to Hamilton. "My father would be amazed by what his small watch shop has become." "What do you mean?" Hamilton asked. "He started with nothing but a dream of making beautiful timepieces. Now his work is helping children all over the world. His legacy grew beyond anything he could have imagined." Sophia thought about that. Eduardo Martinez had died thinking his work would end with him, but his knowledge had passed to Elena, then to Sophia, and now to Dmitri. His values had inspired Hamilton to create a foundation that would help thousands of families. One man's small acts of kindness had rippled forward through time, touching lives he never could have imagined. "I have something to tell you all," Hamilton said. "I've been offered a job." Everyone looked at him in surprise. "What kind of job?" Sophia asked. "The Swiss National Museum wants me to help create an exhibition about the history of timekeeping. They want to show how watches and clocks have shaped human civilization." "That sounds amazing," Elena said. "Will you take it?" "Only if you'll all help me. They want to include the story of our family, and they want Eduardo's workbench and tools as part of the display." Sophia felt a thrill of excitement. Grandfather's tools would be in a museum, in one of the most important museums in the world. Millions of people would learn about Eduardo Martinez and his dedication to his craft. "He would be so honored," Elena said, tears in her eyes. "There's more," Hamilton continued. "They want to create a workshop where children can learn basic watchmaking skills. They want Sophia to help design the program." Sophia's heart leaped. "Really? You would teach children from around the world about the art of timekeeping? Just like Eduardo taught Elena, and Elena taught you." Sophia looked at her grandmother's watch, thinking about the chain of knowledge passing from one generation to the next. "I would love that." As they sat watching the sunset over Monaco, Sophia reflected on how much had changed since that terrible night when she had broken into Hamilton's apartment. Back then, she had thought happiness came from having enough money to solve your problems. Now she understood that happiness came from having people to love and meaningful work to do. Back then, she had seen Hamilton's watches as objects to be stolen for their monetary value. Now, she understood that their real value lay in the stories they told and the memories they preserved. Back then, she had been a desperate girl with no future. Now she was part of a family that spanned generations and continents, carrying forward traditions that would outlast them all. "I have a question," Dmitri said, breaking the peaceful silence. "What happened to the EMP device I made? The one we used to break into Louis's apartment?" Sophia and Hamilton looked at each other and laughed. "I kept it," Hamilton said. "It's in a place of honor in my study." "Why?" "Because it reminds me that sometimes the things that seem like disasters are actually the beginning of miracles." Sophia nodded. "If you hadn't made that device, we never would have gotten into the apartment. If we hadn't gotten into the apartment, Louis never would have caught us. If he hadn't caught us, we never would have become a family." Elena finished. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Sofia thought about her grandfather Eduardo, working alone in his small Barcelona shop, never knowing that his dedication to his craft would someday inspire a Formula One champion to create a foundation helping children around the world. She thought about her grandmother Carmen, making a watch for a granddaughter she would never meet, never knowing that watch would one day connect two families across generations. She thought about Anthony Hamilton, working 3 jobs to support his son's racing dreams, never knowing that his friendship with a Spanish watchmaker would someday save a little girl's mother. All these people making small acts of love and sacrifice, never knowing how their actions would ripple forward through time to create something beautiful. You know what I learned? Sofia said to the group. What? Hamilton asked. I learned that the most valuable collection in the world isn't made of gold or diamonds or rare metals. What's it made of? Sofia smiled, looking around at the faces of the people who had become her chosen family. It's made of moments. Moments when people choose to help each other. Moments when strangers become family. Moments when love proves stronger than fear. She held up her wrist, showing her grandmother's watch. Every tick of this watch measures another moment I get to spend with all of you. That's the real treasure. Elena reached over and took Sofia's hand. Your grandfather always said that time was the most precious gift we could give each other. He was right, Hamilton said. But he forgot to mention that when you give time to others, you don't lose it, you multiply it. As they sat together under the Monaco stars, surrounded by the gentle sound of waves against the harbor and the distant ticking of 1,000 timepieces throughout the principality, Sofia knew that her grandfather's legacy would continue long after all of them were gone. Because love, like time, was something that could never be stolen. It could only be given away, shared, and passed forward to the next generation. And that made all the difference in the world. 2 years after the foundation launch, on a quiet Sunday morning in Barcelona, Sofia was organizing her grandfather's old letters when she made a discovery that would change everything she thought she knew about her story with Hamilton. She was alone in the watch shop, enjoying the peaceful silence before the week began, when she found a wooden box hidden behind Eduardo's old workbench. Inside were letters she had never seen before, tied with a faded blue ribbon. The first letter was dated just 3 months before Elena's surgery. It was addressed to Lewis Hamilton in Monaco, written in her grandfather's careful handwriting, but in English instead of Spanish. Sofia's hands began to shake as she read, "My dear friend Lewis, I hope this letter finds you well and successful in your racing. Anthony spoke of you often before he passed, and I have followed your career with the pride of an uncle watching his nephew grow into a fine man. I write to you today with a heavy heart. My daughter Elena is very sick and living in Monaco with my granddaughter Sofia. They moved there 3 years ago seeking better medical treatment. But I fear they are struggling more than Elena tells me. Sofia is now 12 years old, and as stubborn as her grandmother was, she works very hard to help her mother, but she is still just a child. Elena's pride will never let her ask for help, even when she desperately needs it. I am old and sick myself, and I cannot help them as I wish I could. But I remember how Anthony and I promised each other long ago that our families would always watch over each other. Lewis, I do not ask this lightly, but if something should happen to me, and if Elena and Sofia ever need help, I hope you will remember the friendship between our fathers and find a way to help them that does not wound Elena's pride. Sofia is living at 47 Rue Plati in La Condamine. She works sometimes at the Hotel Grand Monaco. She is a good girl with a kind heart, but I worry that desperation might lead her to make choices that could harm her future. Please watch over them if you can, the way Anthony and I once watched over each other. With deep respect and eternal friendship, Eduardo Martinez." Sofia stared at the letter, her mind spinning. She read it again, then a third time, trying to understand what it meant. Hamilton had known where she lived. He had known where she worked. He had known her grandfather was worried about her making desperate choices. With trembling fingers, Sofia opened the second letter. This one was dated just 1 month before Elena's surgery. "Dear Lewis, I am dying, and my greatest fear is leaving Elena and Sofia alone in the world. Elena's condition is worse than she tells Sofia, and they have no money for the treatment she needs. I have asked a friend in Monaco to watch them from a distance and report to you if they need help. His name is Marcus Chen, and he owns a watch repair shop near the harbor. Marcus does not know about our family connection. I told him only that you are a friend who cares about their welfare. Louis, I must tell you something that may shock you. Sophia has been asking questions about expensive watches and security systems. I fear she is planning something desperate to get money for her mother's treatment. If this happens, please remember that she is not a criminal. She is a frightened child who loves her mother more than her own life. Whatever she might do, it comes from love, not greed. I am sending you a package containing Sophia's grandmother's watch and some photographs of our families together. If the time comes when you need to prove our connection, these will help Elena understand that your help is not charity from a stranger, but kindness from family. Watch over them. Louis. Help them find their way to a better life. And if possible, help Sophia understand that there are better ways to save the people we love than the desperate paths her young mind might choose. Your father would have done the same for my family. I know you will too. With my final blessing, Eduardo Martinez. Sophia set the letter down with shaking hands. Her mind was reeling as the truth became clear. Hamilton had known who she was all along. The chance encounter wasn't chance. The security guard who recognized her, the job at his building, even Marcus Chen being there that first day. It had all been arranged. Sophia found herself remembering moments that now made terrible sense. How easily she had gotten the job at Tour d'Odeon. How Marcus just happened to be visiting Hamilton the day she first saw the watch collection. How Hamilton had seemed unsurprised when she told him her name and that she was from Barcelona. She had thought she was so clever, planning the perfect heist, but Hamilton had been watching over her the whole time, waiting for exactly what Eduardo had predicted would happen. Sophia felt sick. Her entire relationship with Hamilton, everything she treasured about their connection, had been built on a lie. He had let her believe she was making choices, when really he had been pulling strings like she was a puppet. She heard footsteps on the stairs. Elena was coming down to start the day's work. "Good morning, mi amor," Elena called. "You're up early." Sophia quickly hid the letters. She couldn't let Elena see them. Not yet. Not until she figured out what they meant. "I couldn't sleep," Sophia said, trying to keep her voice normal. "I thought I'd get some work done." Elena came over and kissed the top of Sophia's head. "Such a dedicated worker. Your grandfather would be so proud." Sophia forced a smile, but inside she felt like her world was crashing down. Everything she had believed about her story with Hamilton was wrong. That afternoon, Sophia took the train to Monaco. She needed to confront Hamilton and demand the truth. She found him in his apartment, working on a new watch he had bought for the Foundation's auction. He looked up with a warm smile when she entered. "Sophia, what a wonderful surprise. I wasn't expecting you until next week." Sophia pulled the letters from her bag and set them on his desk. "We need to talk." Hamilton's smile faded when he saw the letters. For a long moment, he just stared at them. "Where did you find those?" he asked quietly. "Hidden in Grandfather Eduardo's workshop." "How long have you known about us?" Hamilton set down his tools and looked directly at Sophia. "Since 3 months before your mother's surgery. You knew where I lived. You knew where I worked. You knew I was planning to steal from you." "Yes." Sophia felt anger rising in her chest. "So everything we've been through, me trying to rob you, you catching me, you helping us, it was all fake." "No, Sophia, it wasn't fake. How can you say that? You let me believe I made all those choices when really you were controlling everything." Hamilton stood up and walked to his watch collection. He picked up his father's GMT Master and held it gently. "Sophia, sit down. Please, let me explain. I don't want to sit down. I want the truth. The truth is complicated. Try me." Hamilton took a deep breath. "When I received Eduardo's first letter, I hired a private investigator to check on you and Elena. I learned about Elena's condition, about your financial situation, about how hard you were both working just to survive." Sophia felt betrayed and angry. "You were spying on us. I was trying to figure out how to help without violating Elena's pride. Eduardo was right. She would never accept direct charity from a stranger. So you arranged for me to get the job at your building." "Yes. I thought if you worked there for a while, we might naturally meet, then I could find a way to help that felt organic. But that's not what happened." Hamilton looked at her with sad eyes. "No." Eduardo's second letter arrived, warning me that you might try something desperate. I increased security and monitoring, hoping to prevent you from making a terrible mistake. Sophia felt her anger growing hotter. You let me break into your apartment. I could have stopped you before you got to my floor. But when I saw you hesitate in my watchroom, when I watched you struggle with whether to actually steal from me, I realized Eduardo was right about your character. So you decided to play with me like a toy. I decided to give you a chance to choose who you wanted to be. Sophia stared at him, not understanding. Hamilton continued. Sophia, you stood in a room with $50 million worth of watches. You had the skills to take them, thanks to Dimitri. You had desperate reasons to steal them. But when the moment came, you couldn't do it, because you caught me. No. I watched the security footage later. You had a full minute alone with the cases before I returned. You could have grabbed something and run. But you didn't. Sophia thought back to that terrifying moment in the watchroom. It was true. She had stood there, unable to make herself take anything. You chose not to steal, even when you thought no one was watching. Hamilton said, that choice came from your heart, not from any plan of mine. Sophia felt some of her anger starting to fade, replaced by confusion. But you let me think it was all coincidence. You let me think I had found you by accident, because the connection between us needed to be real. If I had approached you directly and said I'm Lewis Hamilton and your grandfather asked me to help you, what would have happened? Sophia thought about that. Elena would have refused your help, and you would have felt like a charity case instead of a partner. Our relationship would have been built on obligation instead of genuine caring. Hamilton sat down across from Sophia. Everything that happened after I caught you in my apartment was real. My decision to help Elena, our work together in the watch shop, the foundation we created, all of that came from genuine love and respect. Sophia looked at the letters on the desk. But it all started with lies. It started with Eduardo's love for you and Elena, and my promise to honor the friendship between our fathers. Sophia was quiet for a long time, trying to process everything she had learned. Why didn't you tell me before now? She asked. Because I was afraid you would feel exactly the way you feel right now. Betrayed, manipulated, like our whole relationship was false. Isn't it? Hamilton picked up the photograph of Eduardo and Anthony together. Sophia, look at this picture. Do you see two men plotting to control their children's lives? Sophia looked at the photograph. She saw two young men with their arms around each other, smiling at the camera with genuine friendship and joy. I see two friends, she said quietly, who loved each other enough to promise that their families would always take care of each other. Eduardo's letters weren't about manipulation. They were about love reaching across time to protect the people he cared about most. Sophia felt tears starting to form. But you let me think I was making my own choices. You were making your own choices. I just made sure you had the opportunity to make them. Hamilton set down the photograph and looked directly at Sophia. When you decided not to steal from me, that was your choice. When you told me the truth about your mother, that was your choice. When you chose to trust me, to work with me, to become part of this family, those were all your choices. Sophia wiped her eyes with her sleeve. How do I know what was real and what was planned? Because you can feel the difference. Was the love in Elena's eyes when she woke up from surgery real? Was the pride in your voice when you spoke at the foundation launch real? Are the skills you've learned in the watch shop real? Sophia nodded slowly. Those things felt completely real. Sophia, I could arrange for you to meet me, but I couldn't arrange for you to love me. I couldn't arrange for Elena to trust me. I couldn't arrange for us to become a family. Those things happened because they were meant to happen. Sophia looked around Hamilton's apartment at the watches they had worked on together, at the photographs of their families, at all the evidence of the love they had built over the past 2 years. I need time to think about this, she said finally. I understand. Take all the time you need. Sophia gathered up the letters and prepared to leave. At the door, she turned back. Lewis? Yes. Did you ever regret it? Getting involved with us? Hamilton smiled. And Sophia could see that this smile was completely genuine. Never. Not for a single moment. Helping your family saved my life, just as much as it saved Elena's. But Sophia, I need you to know something. What? From the moment I caught you in my watchroom, every choice I made was about loving you and Elena. Not about fulfilling an obligation to Eduardo. You became my family because I chose you. Not because your grandfather asked me to watch over you. Sophia nodded and left the apartment, her mind still spinning with everything she had learned. As she rode the train back to Barcelona, she thought about the past 2 years. Every memory, every memory, every feeling. Were they real or were they manufactured? But then she touched her grandmother's watch and remembered something Hamilton had taught her. The most valuable things in life couldn't be stolen because they lived in the heart. Could love that lived in the heart be manufactured? Could family bonds that felt this strong be artificial? Sophia didn't know the answer yet. But she knew she needed to figure it out. Because everything about her future depended on whether the most important relationship in her life was built on truth or on the kindest lie ever told. As the train pulled into Barcelona, Sophia realized that Eduardo's final gift to her wasn't just the watch or the connection to Hamilton. It was the chance to choose who she wanted to be when faced with the truth about how their story really began. Sophia's journey from a desperate girl planning to steal to a young woman discovering that the greatest treasures in life can never be taken by force, only received through love, kindness, and the connections we make with others. Lewis Hamilton's watch collection truly was worth more than most houses. But the real treasure wasn't the $50 million in timepieces. It was the family he found when he chose compassion over punishment and love over fame. Where are you listening from today? Drop a comment below and let us know what country or city you're in. We love hearing from our global family of listeners. If this story touched your heart, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more incredible true stories of human kindness, second chances, and the power of choosing love over fear. Most importantly, share this video with your friends and family. In a world that often feels divided, stories like Sophia and Lewis's remind us that kindness still exists, that people still care for each other, and that sometimes the most broken situations can become the most beautiful beginnings. Help us spread this message of hope and human connection. Because just like Eduardo's small acts of kindness rippled forward through generations, your simple act of sharing this story might be exactly what someone needs to hear today. Thank you for listening, and remember, the most valuable collection you can build isn't made of objects. It's made of moments of love, kindness, and the family you choose along the way.